Hope everyone's having a good Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on where you are in the world. And we have sad news. None of the news coming out of Palestine is good, whether it be the West Bank, whether it be Gaza, whether it be Westerners talking, like the Westerners that are responsible for this genocide, talking about Israel and Palestine. Nothing is good on this front. So we have a lot to cover in regards to Israel and Palestine, but hopefully we can lighten the mood by just like making fun of Ethan Klein for posting completely unhinged stories on his Instagram and enjoying Anna Kasparian just like tearing him a new asshole. That's always going to be entertaining. Happy to see you here, everyone. So, the big news coming out today is that Israel was killed. Israel has just killed 5 Al Jazeera journalists. Well, they killed 5 journalists in a targeted airstrike in Gaza. So we have this WikiLeaks article right here. Al Jazeera journalists Anas Al-Sharif and Mohammed Krakia and camera operators Ibrahim Zahir, Mohammed Nufal, and Moamen Aliyah have been killed in a targeted Israeli airstrike. 2 weeks ago, UN Special Rapporteur Irene Khan warned that Israeli threats and smear campaigns were a blatant attempt to endanger al-Sharif's life and silence his reporting on the genocide in Gaza. In July, the Committee to Protect Journalists said it was gravely concerned for his safety, warning he was being targeted by an Israeli military smear campaign. Shortly before the strike, al-Sharif posted to X, "Non-stop bombing for 2 hours now. The Israeli aggression has been intensifying on Gaza City." Well over 200 journalists and media workers have been killed in Gaza since October 2023. And I mean, like we fucking know about all of this, where Ethan and Hila are saying that Hasan needs to go to
brief
Gaza,
note
right?
on this also. So Motaz spoke out about this too. I didn't even realize like I feel kind of bad that he like saw this, but I guess he sees a lot of stuff online nowadays. But initially Ethan and he months ago, and then had to apologize.
I mean, it's part of.
He went with Eylon Levy, the Israeli spokesperson, the former Israeli spokesperson. You think the conditions are the same? Anyway, yeah, zone of interest.
Should go to Gaza. And if he doesn't, he should be severely judged by his audience for being a total fucking coward.
I mean, it's part of why I judge him. He doesn't know shit about that conflict. He's never been to Gaza, never been to Israel. He doesn't know shit about it.
No, he doesn't.
He does not.
Yeah, these people say.
So yeah, like we don't really need to play any more than that. Ethan and Hila Klein are Israelis. They claim they cover the genocide that's going on. They claim that they keep up on the news and they appraise themselves of these things. Either A, they're lying about keeping up on what Israel's doing in Gaza, which is true, but I think it's also true that they know Israel is killing journalists that are in Gaza, and deep down they kind of want Hasan to just be killed. Like they are running a harassment campaign against Hasan. They're running a harassment campaign against anyone even tangentially related to Hasan, and none of it's been working. So he's then resorted to suing these people to get them to legally shut up. But would Ethan start crying if Hasan actually was in Gaza and Israel bombed him and killed him? I don't really think so. I think that this is just him using the power of Israeli bombs, Israel's genocide in Gaza, as a threat to someone that speaks out against that. It's as simple as what it seems to be on its face. Over 200 journalists have died in less than 2 years of genocide. Ethan Klein knows this because it's a very common talking point that Israelis are killing journalists. And he's telling Hasan to go to the place where all of the journalists are being killed as a journalist, as specifically as a journalist that is speaking out against Israel, which are the ones that are being killed. I heard they got brain lesions or something. I mean, you don't have to have brain lesions to be a fucking Nazi. You just need to be an evil person. And yeah, these people are running defense for Nazi ideology. They're running defense for an ethnostate. They're running defense for colonialism and genocide. That's what these people are. So on the day that, so Anas Al-Sharif among 5 Al Jazeera journalists killed by Israel in Gaza, and this happened today.
Hani Mahmoud is on the phone from Gaza City. Hani, what do we know?
This is perhaps the hardest thing I'm reporting about for the past 22 months. I'm not far from the Shifa house, just 1 block away, and I could hear the massive explosion that took place in the past half an hour or so near Shifa house. I could see it when it lit up the sky, and just within moments the news circulated. It was the journalist tent at the main gate of the Shifa hospital. At this particular time of the night, it calms down. All the journalists gather in one area, try to either talk to each other, help each other to survive these conditions, when a drone strike hit the tent, killing Anas Al-Sharif and his colleague Ahmed Al-Khatib. Both are correspondents of Al Jazeera Arabic on the ground. They have been reporting on the atrocities of the Israeli military, the airstrikes, the enforced starvation and dehydration, all of these past months. It's important to highlight this attack just a week after an Israeli military official directly accused Anas and directly ran a campaign of incitement on Al Jazeera and correspondents on the ground because of their work, because of their relentless reporting on the starvation and the famine and the malnutrition, because they bring in the truth to the screen for everyone. Just a week after that statement was made by a prominent Israeli military official, it got translated on the ground practically by targeting this tent and killing 2 of the most prominent journalists on the ground. Been doing reports on everything that happened from the opening weeks of this genocide till today. The last report that was done today on the ongoing enforced starvation and dehydration and the famine that is spreading everywhere across the Gaza Strip. Anas and Muhammad and many other people who were in the tent, we were literally looking at footage that were circulating of bodies scattered in the area.
Jesus. So let's just look this up. Israeli official targets, what's his name? His name is Anas Al-Sharif. I mean, I'm sure that we'll look this up. Al Jazeera journalist Anas Al-Sharif deliberately killed. I mean, it's just so undeniable at this point where Israel is just openly targeting journalists that are reporting on the genocide that's going on, because there is no justification for what Israel is doing in Gaza. And so they are just resorting to just saying, you cannot believe your lying eyes. Just don't believe anything that's happening. Oh, the reason that there's so much destruction, that's because Hamas had so many explosives within Gaza, within buildings in Gaza, that, you know, we put one little bomb in the buildings and it just has a massive explosion. We're not actually just demolishing the entire buildings. That's Hamas. The reason people are starving, that's because Hamas is hoarding all of the food, right? That's what's going on. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to cover too. Ahmed Al-Khatib, Ahmed Al-Khatib. I wanted to look him up as well, so we can. Let's just do that right now. So yeah, the Israeli officials, and we can try to find this, and I'm sure the Al Jazeera article is going to be talking about it. But we have this from Ahmed Al-Khatib, the guy who said, oh yeah, when there's a genocide going on, I choose to focus on the people that are being genocided. And so we can take a look at this. So from Idris Ahmed, this terrible news, Israel pulled the trigger, but I squarely blame Ahmed Al-Khatib for their deaths. He planted false stories about Anas and is directly responsible for his murder. I also blame The Atlantic and the Atlantic Council for giving this rat a platform for his lethal smears. And Ahmed Al-Khatib, the guy that Ethan Klein brought on to be a shining example of pro-Palestinian advocacy, that had this to say back in February. Al Jazeera journalist Anas Al-Sharif and cameramen attempted to provoke a security incident at the Netzarim corridor at the behest of Hamas. They tried to put up a drone above the Egyptian and American forces after the withdrawal of Israeli troops to capture footage, but were likely gathering intel and scouting the area for Hamas, which was rumored to want to use the Netzarim corridor as a site for a future hostage release to prove it is in full control of Gaza. The American PMCs worked with the Egyptian security personnel to get the drone operator not to fly it overhead, with tensions escalating. The Al Jazeera journalist team sent it up anyway. The video of the incident has been distributed on social media with laughter, commentary to boast about defying U.S. security contractors, proving that Netzarim, like most of Gaza, is back under full control of the resistance. Extremely reckless behavior that's going to endanger the ceasefire and create unnecessary risks for civilians and the fragile calm that's desperately needed. So, once again, putting blame for the lack of a ceasefire on fucking journalists that are stuck in Gaza, aren't able to leave Gaza, and then got assassinated. Calling out this Al Jazeera journalist, Anas Al-Sharif, by name, directly putting a spotlight on his back, and basically saying that, oh yeah, they're working on behalf of Hamas, and they're actually getting in the way of the peace process, right? Setting the groundwork for an assassination, not only like identifying the target that is doing an amazing job, in my opinion, heroic job of documenting the genocide that's going on in Gaza, but also giving the Israelis the beginning of an excuse and the beginning of a PR spin that they can put on this assassination to say that he was working with Hamas. Absolutely disgusting. This guy is scum of the earth. Ahmed Al-Khatib. Like, I really can't think of something worse than acknowledging that a genocide's going on, losing family members in that genocide, and choosing to put blame on the people that are being genocided instead of the people that are doing the genociding, just so you can get a do-nothing job at the Atlantic. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous, man. It's so gross. Let's read this article. Anas Al-Sharif, among the 5 Al Jazeera journalists killed by Israel in Gaza, and he was in Gaza City. So they went to a tent, and then the tent was bombed, specifically targeting the journalists. So he's been killed alongside 4 colleagues in a targeted Israeli attack on a tent housing journalists in Gaza City. 7 people were killed in the attack on the tent located outside the main gate of Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital late on Sunday evening. They include Al Jazeera correspondent Mohammed Karek and camera operators Ibrahim Zahar, Mohammed Nufal, and Momin Aliwa. Shortly before being killed, Al-Sharif, a well-known 28-year-old Al Jazeera Arabic correspondent who had reported extensively from northern Gaza, wrote on X that Israel had launched intense concentrated bombardment, also known as fire belts, on the eastern and southern parts of Gaza City. In his last video, the loud booms of Israel's intensive missile bombing can be heard in the background as the dark sky is lit in a flash of orange light. So let's just look at his last video. I mean, it's just so dystopian. Like, you're in a fucking tent with 5 other journalists because all of the other ones have been killed, reporting on bombing, and then Israel just targets you and assassinates you. In a final message written on April 6th to be published in the event of his death, Al-Sharif said, "He lived the pain in all its details and tasted grief and loss repeatedly. Despite that, I never hesitated to convey the truth as it is, without distortion or misrepresentation, hoping that God would witness those who remained silent, those who accepted our killing, and those who suffocated our very breaths. Not even the mangled bodies of our children and women moved their hearts or stopped the massacre that our people have been subjected to for over a year and a half. The reporter has also expressed sorrow for having had to leave his wife Bayan behind, and for not seeing his son Salah and daughter Sham grow up." In a statement, Al Jazeera Media Network condemned the killings as yet another blatant and premeditated attack on press freedom. This attack comes amid the catastrophic consequences of the ongoing Israeli assault on Gaza, which has seen the relentless slaughter of civilians, forced starvation, and the obliteration of entire communities. The order to assassinate Anas Al-Sharif, one of Gaza's bravest journalists, and his colleagues, is a desperate attempt to silence the voices exposing the impending seizure and occupation of Gaza. Al Jazeera called on the international community and all relevant organizations to take decisive measures to halt this ongoing genocide and end the deliberate targeting of journalists. Al Jazeera emphasizes that immunity for perpetrators and the lack of accountability emboldens Israel's actions and encourage further oppression against witnesses to the truth. Al Jazeera correspondent Hani Mahmoud, who was just 1 block away when the strike hit, said reporting on Al-Sharif's death was the hardest thing he has had to do in the past 22 months of war. Mahmoud, who works for the network's English channel, said the reporters were killed because of their relentless reporting on the starvation and the famine and malnutrition. So, in a statement confirming the deliberate killing of Al-Sharif, Israel's military accused the journalist of heading a Hamas cell and advancing rocket attacks against Israeli civilians and Israeli troops. It is also alleged that it had documents providing unequivocal proof of his involvement with the Palestinian group. I mean, holy fuck, dude. Like, it's literally the same fucking tweet that we just read, right? The tweet that we just read from this is he's working with Hamas to do scouting, right? He's flying drones so that Hamas can have a tactical advantage. And then they're like, oh yeah, he's like, obviously it doesn't take a fucking genius to predict what the Israelis are going to say, and every one of their excuses is the same. But yeah, he's advancing rocket attacks against Israeli civilians. It's just insane, man. His entire daily routine was standing in front of a camera from morning to evening. Yeah, but I guess he's just Batman, where he's Bruce Wayne during the day, and then at night he's directing rocket attacks against Israeli civilians. Oh yeah, so this is what I wanted to see too. Last month, after Israeli army spokesperson Avichai Adrei he shared a video on social media accusing Al-Sharif of being a member of Hamas's military wing, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, Irene Khan, said she was deeply alarmed by repeated threats and accusations of the Israeli army. Okay, let's see what this video is that he shared.
وثائق حماس والجهاد التي تم العثور عليها في غزة والتي نكشف عنها اليوم.
Are we going to get fucking captions? Launched a personal media campaign that may aim to boost his organizational status within Qassam, but it will not succeed in concealing a documented truth. Anas is part of Hamas's military machine, having shifted during the war to work in the most criminal and abusive channel toward the people of Gaza, simply because it tries to turn defeat into victory at the expense of the population and cover up the crimes that Anas's colleagues in Hamas have committed and continue to commit against humanity. Like, it's all fucking projection from these people. It's all projection. Oh, you're a criminal that's complicit in crimes against humanity. You're the one oppressing the Palestinian population. And now everyone knows that you are a Hamas member by affiliation and role. Hamas documents found in Gaza, which we revealed today, leave no room for doubt. He's an activist in Hamas's military wing. Like, look, just once, just once in my fucking life, I'd love for them to say what he actually did. Was he on some of the paragliders that went over the border on October 7th? Did he kill Israeli children? Did he fire rockets into Israel? Like, they just say he's part of Hamas and then they kill him. Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely barbaric. So you have journalists that are reporting on Palestine getting assassinated, and then you have these fucking liberal-ass Zionists in America and in the UK and in the West in general that are like, I don't know if we should really be talking about what's going on in Gaza. Remember the fucking ContraPoints thing? I don't know if we should just be sharing gore that's happening in Palestine, because that's just exacerbating tensions, and it can have some negative consequences towards Jewish people in America. And I just think that, like, it's not worth to put it out there. So as journalists are fucking dying, you get people like ContraPoints and you get people like Ethan Klein and literally just everyone else who's a fucking liberal as Zionist, and even the Republicans, all agreeing that, you know, you can't talk bad about Israel. What was that law that Trump just said he wanted to pass? Take away FEMA funding if you protest Israel? What is this? 3 days ago. FEMA reverses plan to require Israel loyalty oath for disaster aid. So this was a plan that they had, and now they're actually going against it. So they reverse its decision to link disaster relief funds with loyalty pledges to Israel. Absolutely insane. What was the statement? What the actual fuck? Loyalty pledges to Israel? Let me just control F this. Anti-discrimination. Recipients must comply with all applicable federal anti-discrimination laws material to the government's payment decisions for purposes of 31 USC 372. As used in this clause, DEI, discriminatory prohibited boycott means refusing to deal, cutting commercial relations, or otherwise limiting commercial relations specifically with Israeli companies or with companies doing business in or with Israel or authorized by, licensed by, or organized under the laws of Israel to do business. Holy shit. Just like writing it into the fucking disaster relief funds that if you boycott Israel, you're ineligible to receive disaster relief. And then, yeah, Israel, and then you have this fucking rogue state just sniping off journalists just because they feel like it. Okay, so let's just talk about this. So Anna Kasparian put out this tweet, and she says, "Our country is occupied and controlled by the Israelis. This is our fight. They're using our money and our bombs to slaughter innocent people and steal land. And then our media tells us the Muslim world hates us for our freedom, and people believe that slop as they lose public services because their resources are being sent abroad. The jig is up. You either love America or the country occupying it." Now, obviously, the people in charge of America, the people that are actually giving funds to Israel, are benefiting from giving funds to Israel. They're not Israelis occupying America. There's a lot of Zionist Americans that are Zionists either ideologically, like Joe Biden, or Zionists just because that's the best way to make a lot of money in politics, like Donald Trump. Donald Trump got given millions of dollars by the Adelsons in order to get more stuff for Israel, basically taking off sanctions, allowing them to invade the Golan Heights, and turning the other way when we're looking at them bombing Syria and settling the West Bank. You have Joe Biden, who's like ideologically a Zionist. The United States sells they basically buy contracts to weapons companies and they feed the military-industrial complex so that they can then gift those weapons to Israel. It's a military-industrial complex feeding machine. That's the whole point of the United States' colonialization project in Israel. That's why we're supporting it. That's why we have so much support, because there's a lot of money in corporations to send weapons to Israel and using it as like a testing ground and never-ending war. So it's not that we're in a country that's occupied by Israelis. We're in a country that is occupied by corporations and Zionists that want to support Israel for one reason or another. But yeah, I don't think that it's like the Israelis have dirt on people, and the only reason that Trump and Joe Biden wanted to support Israel is because they had Jeffrey Epstein dirt on them and he's a Mossad agent. I think it's a lot more obvious than that. America just wants to fucking like shoot its guns off. But let's see if Ethan Klein has a reasonable critique to this. But other than that, other than saying like our country is occupied and controlled by the Israelis, this is 100% true. This is our fight. I agree with that. Israel is using our money and our bombs to slaughter innocent people and steal land. Saying that the media tells us the Muslim world hates us for our freedom. That's 100% true. And we're like in an austerity government right now, just cutting all social services, not investing in infrastructure. America is crumbling around us, and every type of social safety net, social institution is being undermined by this current Republican regime. You either love America or the country occupying it. Once again, it's not like country is not occupying America. It's people in America that are oligarchs that don't care about the poor people in America. So I would just disagree with her on that part. Okay, so this is what we have from Ethan Klein, though. So let's see what his critique of Anna Kasparian is. And I wonder, can I zoom in on this? No, I cannot. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I'll just try to do a good job reading it. This is the thing, though. This is a critique of Israel. Like, I agree with what you're saying, Karachi. This is a critique of Israel that you would find from right-wing conservatives. You have anti-Semitic conservatives saying that, they wouldn't say the Israelis, they just say the Jews, right? You have right-wing conservatives saying that the Jews are controlling America, and since we have Jews controlling America, you're trying to hurt white people by taking money out of America and sending it to Israel. And the reality is, it's like simpler than that, right? There's not a conspiracy theory of Jews in the country ruling the world. It's wealthy politicians being bought by wealthy corporations and using taxpayer money to feed those corporations, and then they fucking produce guns and weapons and bombs that we can send to Israel. That's pretty much it. And then there is also racist people that are like, we must control the Muslim population in the Middle East, and the best way to do that is through our satellite state Israel in the Middle East. That's all that it is. Like, racism and greed. It's not a fucking grand conspiracy of Jewish people to undermine America, to like ruin white people's lives. It's the fucking white people that are doing this. But let's see what Ethan Klein's response is to this. What I detest here is the idea that America is somehow occupied because of an American political action group, AIPAC. The term ZOG, Zionist Occupied Government, has been deployed by American neo-Nazis for decades. It plays into the trope that Jews control everything. Qatar spends way more than AIPAC. Why don't you ever mention them? Because like all good conspiracy theories, it hits on a real problem. Too much money in lobbying. Because like all good conspiracy theories, it hits on a real problem. But there it world builds into an insidious, hateful lie. But from there, it world builds into an insidious, hateful lie. In this case, that Zionists are the real controllers of our government. like, once again, our government is filled with Zionists, but Ethan Klein is not able to actually understand that Zionists just encompass people that are pro-Israel. He thinks that Zionists always mean the word Jew. And then what are we talking about here? Let me just read this again. So it says, why don't they mention... So he's saying the term Zog has been deployed. It plays into the trope that Jews control everything. That's true. Zionist-occupied government does play into that trope. Qatar spends way more than AIPAC. Why don't you ever mention them? I'm sure Anna Kasparian does mention them, but America isn't funding a genocide that Qatar is doing right now. Because, like all good conspiracy theories, it hits on a real problem. But from there, a world builds into an insidious... So yeah, like, this is just a fucking crazy toilet post that Ethan's putting on here. There's the sentence structures, or like the paragraph structure is all screwed up. So he says, Qatar spends way more than AIPAC. Why don't you ever mention them? And then he goes back into the Zionist-occupied government conspiracy theory. But their world builds into an insidious, hateful lie. In this case, that Zionists are the real controllers of our government. Once again, both of these people are getting it wrong. It's not that our government is occupied by Zionists. Our government has a lot of Zionists in it. And then in Ethan's case, he's saying that our government has a lot of Zionists in it is equivalent to an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. And that's just not the case. American government is filled with Zionists, either because they're ideologically a Zionist, like Joe Biden, where he genuinely thinks that Israel is the only safe place for Jewish people in all of the world, or like Mike Huckabee, where he genuinely thinks that Jews need to go to Israel so that it can achieve some kind of prophecy and the world can end. Or you have racist people that are like, we need to have a white satellite state in the Middle East to control the brown Muslims. Or you just have people that are like, Israel's the best place for us to have forever wars that we can give contracts to our donors for. That's pretty much it. Then he says, Anna, do your forebears know that you work at a news organization that glorifies the Young Turks, the political party responsible for the Armenian genocide? This would be literally the same as me working for an org called the Nazis. So this is Ethan Klein's favorite talking point, basically being like, Anna, did you know that your organization name is bad? And he expects that to be some kind of gotcha for Anna Kasparian when it's the most irrelevant thing ever. So then Anna Kasparian actually responds here. I think this is what it was. Okay, this was the original thing. Well, I guess we'll see what Anna Kasparian actually says. Oh yeah, this is what it was. This was her response here. So she says, Hey, H3H3 Productions, your low IQ attacks against TYT's name is rich, considering Israel doesn't recognize the Armenian genocide and provided the weapons the Azeris used to ethnically cleanse Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh. So how about you shut the fuck up with your fake concern about Armenians, you 2-bit genocide-supporting douchebag. Funny how you had no issues with the name of the show until people began rightly criticizing Israel. And you have to be brain dead to think that an American political show that barely ever even discusses Turkey is named after a Turkish political group from a century ago. I'm sure that's what Rod Stewart was also doing when he named one of his most popular songs Young Turk. Also, please eat a dick. Not bad from Anna Kasparian here. Qatar. I don't know how it's pronounced. I think it's like Qatar. Like, you can put a little bit of an accent on it. How does it feel that you have a new Nazi fan base? I doubt I have many Zionist fans. Oh man. Goddamn, like Anna Kasparian getting down and dirty in her comment section, something that Ethan Klein won't really do. Like, as much of a drama queen as Ethan Klein is, he does keep his nose relatively dry, or keep his nose relatively clean when it comes to feuding with people online. He always makes sure it's from his Instagram stories where he can't get directly responded to, or in his show, essentially, where he is surrounded by sycophants that are always going to say how great he is. So anyway, once again, like Anna Kasparian kind of missing with her criticism of Israel. So then we can go further into this. And this is what I wanted to talk about as well. So Anna Kasparian then posts about the fucking ADL CEO that we need to fucking watch this happening. So ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt laments that intermarriage rates are continuing to rise among Jews. Okay, so let's listen to this clip.
Is it your sense that Jewish people are getting complacent, that they're not engaging to degrees and levels we should be?
I have met a lot of October 8th Jews for whom...
I have met a lot of October 8th Jews? What?
Is it your sense that Jewish people are getting complacent, that they're not engaging to degrees and levels we should be?
I have met a lot of October 8th Jews for whom the massacre on October 7th was a wake-up call. I've met a lot of people who feel much more galvanized, much more organized. But that...
Guys, I'm getting so sick of these AI subtitles. They're just like getting it wrong. It's so annoying.
Will only be sustained if we offer them, ways to participate in a real and robust way in Jewish life.
Mm-hmm. And whose responsibility is that? In essence?
All of ours.
Yeah.
But this is why we need a revolution in our community on so many levels. So look, the reality is that intermarriage rates continue to go up. Assimilation continues apace. And look, I fight anti-Semitism. That is my job.
Right.
But I worry a great deal about...
Once again, the ADL is supposed to be the Anti-Defamation League. They're supposed to fight against bigotry. But in reality, it's just like, they say they're fighting against anti-Semitism. In reality, it's really just supporting Israel. That's the biggest part of their job.
Broader questions of Jewish identity, as I think we talked about over lunch.
Is it your sense that Jewish people are getting complacent, that they're not engaging to degrees and levels we should be?
I have met a lot of October 8th Jews for whom the massacre on October 7th was a wake-up call. I've met a lot of people who feel much more galvanized, much more organized. But that will only be sustained if we offer them, ways to participate in a real and robust way in Jewish life.
Mm-hmm. And whose responsibility is that? In essence?
All of ours. Yeah. But this is why we need a revolution in our community on so many levels. So look, the reality is that intermarriage rates continue to go up. Assimilation continues apace. And look, I fight anti-Semitism. That is my job.
Right.
But I worry a great deal about broader questions of Jewish identity, as I think we talked about over lunch.
I mean,
is it your sense?
I don't even really give a fuck about this. Obviously, people whose jobs rely on... if you are part of a minority group and your job relies on maintaining the identity of that minority group, you're gonna be a little fucking racist about people leaving. Look, it's not even necessarily racist if you're like, oh, people are not keeping up with the cultural norms of this group. But when you do talk about intermarriage rates rising up, that can lead to some racist thoughts about saying don't date, don't get married with people outside of your ethnicity. So, and of course, if you are going to be dating people outside of your ethnicity, cultures are going to change. I think people that are fixated on maintaining a culture are, it can be fun. It can be a good thing to try to maintain culture, look back on your tradition, but the idea that you have to have it be some kind of regimented indoctrination for your children to grow up in and forced upon them, I do think that's a little bit suspect. Once again, if we're talking about maintaining culture, keeping up tradition, that's all great, but if it's going to come at the cost of other personal harms and at the cost of other personal freedoms, then that is going to be an issue. So yeah. Maintaining culture is cool. Saying you can't fucking marry outside of your culture, that's not cool. That's going to be my position on this. And when we're talking about like fighting against anti-Semitism, if your goal, like fighting against anti-Semitism in theory should have nothing to do with maintaining Jewish culture and keeping intermarriage rates and assimilation of Jewish people with non-Jewish people, keeping those things tamped down. Like, fighting against anti-Semitism should have nothing to do with maintaining the culture of the minority groups that are being faced off against, unless it's like discrimination against that culture, which is not really talking about in this sense. He's talking about Jewish people not being militant in their Jewishness. He's not talking about actual attacks on synagogues or attacks on people praying. And actually, ironically, Israel is a big part of killing historical Jewish culture. There is a big argument right now in Israel of Hasidic Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews, being forced to sign up for the IDF. And there's a faction of Netanyahu's government that represents the extreme ultra-Orthodox Jewish people that are threatening to break apart the coalition if the draft gets changed to now start drafting ultra-Orthodox Jewish people. So that's an example of an aspect of Jewish culture that is getting destroyed, that is getting completely overrun, and he doesn't really seem to care about that because that has nothing to do with intermarriage rates. So anyway, what does Anna Kasparian have to say here? The arbiter of anti-Semitism is worried about Jewish people marrying non-Jews. You can be 1000% in favor of interfaith and interracial marriage. But if you criticize Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people, you deserve to have your life ruined. He, on the other hand, can look down his nose at Jews who marry for love, regardless of religious or racial identity. Which is true. He's basically being like, if you are marrying a non-Jewish person, you're not doing your part at keeping up the Jewish identity, and you're not like a good Jew. That's the implication here. And then what we have from Ethan, let's see what he has to say. So I just love how Ethan's like a dog with a bone, and he just gets bored of it so quickly. Like 6 months ago, he was just like jerking off thinking about Hasan every night. Then it was Frogan, then it was Taylor Lorenz, last week it was Denims, and now I guess his newest target is Anna Kasparian. Like, dude, you're not on Twitter. How the fuck are you finding all of this shit out? Like, Ethan has to have Twitter on his phone, right? This isn't all his Reddit that he's finding on his Reddit and the people on his Reddit posting this shit. Okay, so he says this. What the fuck is with this lady? Do you really want to pretend like Jewish parents are the only ones that care if their children marry within their culture? Okay, he's supposed to be the president of an anti-racist publication, like organization that fights against racism. That's who he's the president of. And he's espousing like a ethno-purist worldview. That's what he's espousing here. That's why she talked about it. Do you really want to pretend like Jewish parents are the only ones that care if their children marry within their culture? Jews are no different in this regard than every culture. Why the fuck do you extrapolate that into Jews looking down on non-Jews? So once again, like, she didn't say Jews look down at non-Jews. She said this man looks down his nose at other Jews who marry for love regardless of religious or racial identity. So Anna Kasparian said that he looks down at non-Jews, which is something that Ethan Klein does himself. Ethan Klein is part of the reason, like, Ethan Klein looks down his nose at Jewish people that are pro-Palestinian. Remember, he calls every single Jew he finds that speaks out against the genocide in Gaza, he calls all of them tokens. That is an example of a Jewish person weaponizing the idea of a good and a bad Jew to just disparage people. Like, he calls Sam Cedar a self-hating Jew, and a token Jew that Hasan has. He's called Felix Bitterman a token Jew. He called, who else? Who else has he called? Matt Lieb, he says he's like a self-hating token Jew. He's a fucking piece of shit. Ethan Klein really wants to be the Pope of the Jews, which is fucking ironic that, like, you know, you have these people that are a little bit racist, that if you don't conform to their depiction of what a good Jewish person should be, then, you know, you're going to be attacked as like a bad Jew, or, you know, we really need to get Jewish cultural norms and values and get them engaged more. And these are the good, like these October 8th Jews, these are the ones that I like. And in Ethan's case, it's constantly the putting down of Jewish people that are pro-Palestine. Or like Karl Marx, he wasn't a Jew, he was a communist. So famously said by Ethan. So he says, why the fuck do you extrapolate that into Jews looking down on non-Jews? He's just hallucinating here. It's obsessively racist. The best way to explain the rise in interracial marriage is that Jewish families are increasingly accepting of such relationships. My brother and sister both married non-Jews, which I don't know if he watched the clip or if he read what Anna Kasparian said, or if he's just fucking stupid and has no ability to analyze what type of text he's reading or video he's listening to. But that is what Jonathan Greenblatt is saying is the issue with the Jewish culture right now, that Jews are marrying out of are doing intermarriages with non-Jewish people. That's what Anna is saying is good, and that's what Jonathan Greenblatt is saying is bad. Okay, yeah, I love how Ethan's the one extrapolating. So I said that 6 months ago Ethan was jerking off to Hasan, and Hasan's the one that got away, and he's never left Ethan's mind, because Ethan just brings him up out of nowhere here, and he says, it's really no wonder Hasan is the way he is. Being surrounded by such bigots as Jake and Anna, I can't imagine what his parents think. Actually, I can, considering his dad founded the political party in Turkey that negotiated the release of Sinwar. Bro, like, this man is next level of delusions. He actually thinks Hasan is like some kind of crown prince of Muslim terrorism. Like, I love the headcanon that he's invented. Anna, you sit there every day profiting off the genocide. Oh my God. You sit there every day profiting off the genocide of your Armenian ancestors. You couldn't even muster the courage to ask for a name change. Kiss the ring of your Ottoman oppressors, coward. Holy fuck, dude. Okay, kiss the ring of your Ottoman oppressors, coward.
Regardless of.
And then he goes and he posts a bunch of Hasan clips. Like, absolutely just delusional from Ethan Klein. So, like, Hasan's dad was on some kind of board for a political party in Turkey, and he's like one of like 500 people that started it, and Ethan's like, oh yeah, he's the guy that personally negotiated the release of Sinwar. Like, he and 2 other people all did some kind of blood contract, and then they created this political party that is completely pro-terrorism. Anna Kasparian is a bootlicker that is working for her Ottoman oppressors. Just so fucking crazy, man. He's so weird. He's such a weird little guy. It's just strange. It's strange stuff.
Regardless of.
Okay. Hasan jump scare. What clips could Ethan possibly be posting of Hasan now?
the hypothetical reality where Kamala Harris would not be as bad as Donald Trump, which we have no proof for, Democrats, if they were in charge right now, would be doing 100% the exact same thing, 1-to-1. Make no fucking mistake. Anyone who tries to tell you that Kamala Harris would be different is a fucking delusional moron. Do not listen to them.
Okay, so yeah, like there was a genocide going on under Democrats and there was a genocide going on under Republicans. I think that there would be slightly more pushback if there was a Democrat in charge, if Kamala Harris had won the election. No evidence of that whatsoever. In fact, Kamala Harris was about as amenable to Palestinian protesters as Donald Trump was. Like, sure, she wasn't advocating for them to be banned from the country. When did she say that we were going to end the genocide going on? When did she say that we're going to cut off arms to Israel? When did she say that we're going to support BDS to Israel if they continue doing colonization in the West Bank? Sure, like Joe Biden put milquetoast sanctions on certain settlers in the West Bank that Donald Trump got rid of on day one. But those weren't doing anything anyway. It's just window dressing. It's meaningless. Sometimes you'd get Joe Biden coming out and make mouth noises indicating that he was unhappy with Netanyahu for doing the genocide. But he wasn't fucking stopping it. There was reporting coming out that Joe Biden never actually pressured Netanyahu to do anything about the genocide. And Donald Trump at least cares about his PR enough where on day one, when he actually just first got elected, he wasn't even in office yet. He put pressure on Netanyahu to get a ceasefire done. And yeah, that ceasefire didn't hold and Israel eventually broke it. But still, that's an indicator that Donald Trump actually cares about his public opinion on this issue enough to where he could be pressured into actually trying to do something. Joe Biden obviously didn't care about what people thought of him at all when it came to Israel and Palestine. So we have here from Ethan a response to the response to the response. So he says, "You are right. I've learned a lot about Hasan, Cenk, and their family since our show ended." Dude, he's actually like a fucking supervillain. Like, he thinks of himself as a supervillain. I love this. He's like, "I'm in my basement, sleeping on the couch, just not because my wife kicked me out of the bedroom, but because I'm doing research. I'm just in my bat cave doing research and making these Ethan's basement videos. I've also learned about you from the numerous Armenians that have reached out to me." Oh my god, dude. I love that this man's like, "I don't tokenize people like Hasan tokenizes Jews." And then he's like, "Let me find the fucking most disgusting person in the world, but say that he's a Palestinian advocate because he was from Palestine. Let me find all of these Armenians and say that because they're Armenians, that's direct evidence that Anna Kasparian is an Uncle Tom, or she's a bootlicker for the people that genocided her. She's a Candace Owens, right? Anna Kasparian is equivalent to Candace Owens. They despise you for what you represent, a submissive coward. Cenk famously denied the Armenian genocide for a time, yet you smile and kiss his ring. But about me. 1, I don't support Israel and I don't work at a place called the Young Zionist." Well, you do actually support Israel. I don't know what to tell you. In your words and in your actions, you are a supporter of Israel, whether you agree or not. Like, he's just lying here. A more accurate statement would be that he doesn't support Netanyahu and Netanyahu's extremist government, but every time he's challenged about Israel, he says, "It's not Israel, it's the extremists in charge of Israel. It's not Israel, it's Netanyahu. Look at the polls. There's Israel. I love Israel. Israel's an amazing place." No, you are a supporter of Israel. Shut the fuck up. Like, you're a supporter of the ethnostate of Israel. That's your position, and you are also effectively a supporter of the genocide. I love this. He doesn't support Israel, but he has an issue that Anna said Israel doesn't acknowledge the Armenian genocide. If you don't support Israel, why the fuck would you care if Israel doesn't acknowledge the Armenian genocide? Okay, what do we have here? 1. I don't support Israel. 2. Israel has nothing to do with the Armenian genocide. I'm not a supporter of Israel, but it has nothing to do with the Armenian genocide, just the Palestinian genocide. Why do you care if they've acknowledged it? Maybe because if you have a baseline for genocide that a country acknowledges, then it would be easier for them to identify that they're doing genocide now? I don't know. If gestures like this matter to you, then you should absolutely understand why the grotesque usage of the Young Turks is disrespectful to Armenians, Assyrians, and Greeks. Okay. 3. Rod Stewart is not a political pundit. You are. Be honest. Do the Armenians, Assyrians, and Greeks genocided by Cenk's family think the name the Young Turks is harmless? By this logic, dude, like, tell your wife to get rid of the Star of David tattoo. The Star of David tattoo is a symbol of Israeli oppression to the to all of the people in countries surrounding Israel. Israel has burned the Star of David tattoo into the necks of their Palestinian prisoners. They've shaved it into the head of Palestinian prisoners. They've used bulldozers and tanks to engrave the very earth of Palestine with the Star of David. So why does your wife have that symbol on her body? It's very insulting to the Palestinians, and it's very insulting to the Jordanians and the Egyptians and the Syrians, who all have to live with Israeli oppression. I don't know. It seems a little gross. It seems like you are supporting genocide by endorsing that symbol, especially a blue Star of David, the symbol of Israeli oppression. You could have gotten it any other color, but Gila Klein had to have it be blue on her arm. A very white arm, too. Hey, thank you, Moza, for the 10 gifted subs. Oh my god. I know you fantasize about the Jews of the region returning to dhimmi status, Anna. I'm sorry progress has been so slow on that, but be for real, you would hate Israel no matter what they did. Yeah, so he's just saying she's anti-Semitic. Okay, so let's watch this interview that Jonathan Greenblatt did, because I think it's interesting. Well, let's close some tabs here. Before we get into the interview, actually, we need to do a bit of background. So Netanyahu has greenlit the plan to take over all of Gaza. And so they're bombing the hell out of Gaza City right now, and then they're going to occupy it. So let's listen. Do we have I guess is it just an article? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Sunday that his plan to seize control of Gaza City and the remaining sliver of Gaza not already under Israeli control will involve displacing the population and taking control of the entire Gaza Strip. Let's just get this right. While there's the president of Israel just advocating for the complete ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza, Ethan, who famously said, "We must always keep the plight of Palestinians at the top of our minds," is in a Twitter argument with Anna Kasparian because she said that Jonathan Greenblatt looks down his nose at people doing intermarriages. And he thinks that's the most important thing to talk about. But he's not a supporter of Israel, right? He calls Rashid al-Haddad, who is an advocate for the pro-Palestinians, he calls them a terrorist. He pushes people like ContraPoints and Ahmed Al-Khatib, who are advocating against the journalists. They're an advocate against the journalists that are covering Gaza, and after 5 journalists just get killed, and Ethan's still platforming them, and he doesn't speak out against them, even though over 200 journalists have now been assassinated by Israel. Yeah, just putting this into perspective here. So His comments in a press conference in Jerusalem come despite tens of thousands of Israelis protesting the plan, which was approved by Israel's Security Cabinet early Friday. The plan will require calling up large numbers of reservists, many of whom have already done previous rounds in the war. The families of hostages held in Gaza are also denouncing the move, demanding Netanyahu's government strike a ceasefire deal with Hamas that frees the 50 or so hostages still held by militants, around 20 of whom are believed to still be alive. And most, if not all, of these 20 are IDF prisoners. But yeah, the media is not going to tell you that. They're just going to say that it's 20 hostages, right? Contrary to false claims, this is the best way to end the war and the best way to end it speedily, he said in his first public comment since Israel's Security Cabinet approved the plan. The plan involves mass displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. Netanyahu said around 75% of Gaza is already under Israeli military control, and said Gaza City and the central areas of the territory would be cleared of civilians. He said Israel will do so by enabling people to leave safely, leave the combat areas to designated safe zones. Oh yeah, the designated safe zones. Let me just put 100% trust in Israel, because of course, if they say a zone is safe, then you can rest assured that the zone is safe. He said that there would be given ample food, water, and medical care. Yeah, ample food, water, medical care. About 4 months ago, when they were first starting talking about feeding the Palestinian population, they said they were going to put them on a caloric minimum diet. I don't know what that is, but it seems to be starvation levels of food. So when Netanyahu says ample, he probably means ample enough to walk or just die on the spot. He doesn't give a fuck. And then color me surprised, but Netanyahu did not say how Gaza's population of 2 million people would be moved to these areas safely, where the zones would be, if they would be encircled by Israeli troops, or any other details of the plan. That's shocking. He did not give details of the plan of his ethnic cleansing campaign. Our goal is not to occupy Gaza, the Prime Minister said. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas terrorists. Yeah, okay. So that's a guy talking about shit. So the UN Secretary General is gravely alarmed by Israel's decision to take control of Gaza City. The UN rights chief says it's the Israeli government's plan for complete military takeover of the Gaza Strip must be immediately halted. The Palestinian resident presidency said that it's a complete crime. He described it as a continuation of genocide, systematic killing, starvation, and siege. Hamas warned that the Israeli government's decision to escalate the war would amount to sacrificing the captives being held in Gaza. Yeah. Palestinian Islamic Jihad said that Israel's plan to expand its assault on Gaza were a new chapter in the war of extermination. And then let's just watch this bombing. Fun bombing videos.
الآن استهداف عنيف يهز المنطقة. يا الله يا الله يا الله.
Yeah, so clearly Israel needs to bomb that rubble, because I saw some structures that were still standing as they killed 5 journalists. And you get this gem from the fucking New York Times, which is a really gross outlet when it comes to covering Israel and Palestine. And they say they killed 4 Al Jazeera journalists. And everyone else is reporting that it's 5 people. 5 people were killed. But like the headline from New York Times is 4 people killed. Like, what is this? 5 Al Jazeera journalists claiming 1 worked for Hamas. How come NBC News is saying 5 when the New York Times is saying 4? Look at this. An Israeli strike near a hospital in Gaza City on Sunday night killed 4 Al Jazeera journalists, and the Gazan health officials reported at least 1 additional fatality. Israeli military confirmed that it had conducted a strike targeting one of the men killed, whom it accused of being a Hamas fighter opposing her as a reporter, an allegation that he and the network has rejected. They said in a statement that a strike on a journalist tent near Al-Shifa Hospital killed 2 reporters and 3 photographers, and called the attack deliberate and premeditated. So if it's 2 reporters and 3 photographers, why would you say that it's only 4 journalists? Al Jazeera reported that 4 of the 5 journalists were killed in strike worked for its network. In a statement, the network condemned what it called the premeditated assassination of correspondents and photographers, calling the attack a desperate attempt to silence voices. The Israeli military said in a statement on Sunday that it had struck in Gaza City without specifying where, and said that it had targeted the terrorist Anas Al-Sharif, who poses as a journalist for the Al Jazeera network. The military accused Mr. Sharif of being the head of a terrorist cell. The Israeli statement said that it had previously disclosed intelligence information in many documents found in the Gaza Strip confirming his military affiliation with Hamas. Okay, so are you going to report on that evidence, or are you just going to say what the IDF said? At the time, the Israeli military distributed what it said were documents seized from Gaza that showed membership lists, phone directories, and salary slips for members of the Qassam brigades and the Al-Quds brigades, the army wings of the 2 groups. The list included names matching those reporters. So the IDF released a list of names, and they're like, he's actually on the payroll of the Al-Quds brigade and the what was he on? Qassam brigades. Okay, anyway. Israel has had an antagonistic relationship with Al Jazeera, yeah, because they actually protest on the crimes that Israel's committing. We're not going to get much fucking use out of this. This is what I wanted to look at. The ADL CEO, anti-Zionism is an ideology of nihilism. Anti-Zionism is an ideology of nihilism. Oh, and then this was the fucking thing where he's like, kind of want to watch this too, where he's like, I'm sad that there's not enough good Jews anymore. So let's take a look at this.
When you normalize language, like from the river to the sea, when you normalize language, like.
Also, you guys can look away now, but it's been a while since we did the gaming stream, so I'm going to fire that up while we watch this.
Globalize the intifada. When you normalize language, like, again, Israel is a Nazi state, this creates the conditions in which people feel not just compelled, but almost obligated, Lulu, to do horrible things.
I'm Lulu Garcia-Navarro, and this is The Interview. I covered the Middle East for a long time as a foreign correspondent, and I can safely say that this moment is a moment like no other in my memory. Here in the US, anti-Semitism and how it relates to criticism of Israel has become central to debates around free speech, immigration,
no one has a right to a student visa,
national security, and fundamentally what it means to feel safe and welcome in this country. One of the central figures in this debate is Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the Anti-Defamation League, or ADL. Founded more than 100 years ago, the ADL's stated mission is to, quote, stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment to all. Under Greenblatt's decade-long tenure, the ADL has tracked a precipitous rise in anti-Semitic incidents across the country, which is why I wanted to talk to Jonathan Greenblatt about how he sees this moment. Thank you so much for joining the interview. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lulu.
I want to start with a big question that I know you think about a lot, which is, what is the situation, in your estimation, for Jews in America right now?
I think this is a time of great concern for Jews all over the United States. You know, at ADL, we track anti-Semitism, we measure attitudes, and we also track incidents. And we've never really seen a time like this, at least not in recent memory. So on the one hand, elevated or intense anti-Semitic attitudes as a percent of the population have more than doubled in the last 5 years. And we also track incidents. What I can tell you is last year, 2024, was the worst year we had ever recorded in terms of acts of harassment, vandalism, and violence directed at Jewish people or Jewish institutions. That was the 5th time in the last 6 years that we've broken a new record. And
I mean, we do have to say that as much as we push back against the idea that anti-Zionism is equivalent in any way to anti-Semitism, there are a lot of right-wing talking heads, a lot of right-wing pundits right now that are pushing the idea that Jews are controlling the country, and that's why America is so supportive of Israel. There's a reason that like Asmund Gold and Nick Fuentes, when they saw the Zoran Mamdani clip where the news reporter was like, or the debate moderators were like, oh yeah, Mr. Mamdani, would you go to Israel? And he's like, no, I would not go to Israel. I'm going to stay in America. There's a reason that appealed to them, and that plays into their anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that they have in their head, where Jews are controlling the media, Jews are controlling the country. If people are complicit to Israel, if they bow down to Israel and they conform to the idea that you must support Israel, that is Jews controlling you. And so, yeah, I do think that because America is supportive of Israel so much, that really does elevate and give credence to anti-Semitic talking points, which is not a good thing. Like, look, support of Israel is not good for Jews in Israel, and it's not good for Jews in America. It's just a bad thing for everyone involved, because when you have a country that's an ethnostate doing genocide and colonization, that's bad for the people it's colonizing. That's bad for them because they experience violent repercussions from the people they're colonizing. And it's also bad for people of that ethnicity that are in the diaspora of that country or not in that country whatsoever. It's bad for everyone involved.
If I look back over the 10 years since I became ADL CEO, the number's up 10x where it was when I started on the job.
That's why I wanted to have you here today, because you have been in charge of the ADL since 2015. And this is a moment in America where anti-Semitism is up. It's an increasing problem. It's at the center of our politics. It's at the center of debates about hate, free speech, and of course, Israel and the war in Gaza. I'd like to understand, though, first, a little bit about you and how you came to this work.
Sure.
You grew up in Connecticut.
It's true. Little town in Connecticut.
Yeah. Can you just tell me a little bit about, before we get to this moment, I do want to understand how the organization has changed over time or not during your tenure. I looked at the ADL's annual audit of anti-Semitic incidents for 2016, which, as you mentioned, is one of the core functions. You track what anti-Semitic incidents are happening and how many. And topping the list at that time was the rise of the alt-right. Looking from that period onwards, you start to see the focus of the audits shift. And one of the things that becomes part of what you start highlighting is anti-Israel sentiment in these audits on the left. Can you explain why that was?
Sure. So first of all, I don't think the audit has sort of altogether changed by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I don't agree with that characterization.
So she said he's adding anti-Israel sentiment on the left, and I think this is where you lose me completely. When you actually have anti-Semitic attacks going on, when there's never been more, at least in my lifetime, never been more prominent anti-Semitic voices on the right, conservatives being openly anti-Semitic, and emboldened by America's support for Israel, seeing this anti-Semitic lane opening up for themselves. If your focus is on the left, you lose any kind of credibility you had as a serious organization or a serious person pushing against anti-Semitism. If you claim fighting against anti-Semitism and you're focusing on people that are advocating on behalf of Palestinians, you're not actually fighting against anti-Semitism. You're fighting against people that are pro-Palestinian. You're fighting in favor of a genocide. That's what you're doing. So yeah, like, this guy lost all kind of credibility with me when he's like, yeah, I'm going to focus on leftist anti-Semitism.
This country, we're a small minority, still are, but
thank you for the
didn't have much cultural influence.
Thank you for the super chat. I've never played Animal Crossing. This is kind of like Animal Crossing, though. I just have to kill a lot of animals in this game.
Didn't have much sort of political standing. These people thought, we will fight for ourselves and we will fight for others. Jews can only be safe if everyone is safe.
before we get to this moment, I do want to understand how the organization has changed over time or not during your tenure. I looked at the ADL's annual audit of anti-Semitic incidents for 2016, which, as you mentioned, is one of the core functions. You track what anti-Semitic incidents are happening and how many. And topping the list at that time was the rise of the alt-right. Looking from that period onwards, you start to see the focus of the audits shift. And one of the things that becomes part of what you start highlighting is anti-Israel sentiment in these audits on the left. Can you explain why that was?
Sure. So first of all, I don't think the audit has sort of altogether changed by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I don't agree with that characterization. No. The audit may evolve relative to the times, and circumstances dictate that we respond to them, but we have a very rigorous methodological process. I mean, we are very exacting in what we count. So someone says something happened, we don't report that. An anti-Israel rally on its own, we don't count that. We only count where we can determine with sufficient conviction that there was actual anti-Semitism. So this is very important. I mean, I think last year we tracked over 5,000 anti-Israel rallies, the majority of which are not in the audit because we didn't see evidence of anti-Semitism at them. So marching down the street and saying Free Palestine is not anti-Semitic. There is this fiction that ADL or other groups look at every instance where Israel is criticized and call that anti-Semitism. That is not the case.
I want to absolutely dig into how you determine this. I guess I just meant what was happening in the culture at that moment that brought these incidents to the forefront.
Well, I think one thing that we
because
started
there is
to
a
see,
difference from what we saw earlier.
and I think there's a difference in the intensity and the pervasiveness of this sort of...
Like, this is what I don't really understand. If you're saying that there's leftist anti-Semitism, what would the difference be between a left critique of Jewish people or a leftist bigotry towards Jewish people and a conservative bigotry towards Jewish people? You're still being bigoted towards Jewish people. Is it that the left are like criticizing Jews as not being considerate about the climate enough, and conservatives are criticizing Jews of, I don't know, like just doing like blood and soil arguments, like Nazi arguments? Explain to me what the leftist anti-Semitism is if it's not just criticizing Israel. That's what I want to hear.
Hate, where people feel, and again, it's sort of a trend of the last decade, last 10 years. I think anti-Semitism has been normalized in the culture. And I think people are now saying things and doing things in public spaces that just weren't the case. So I would look back at a pivotal point as 2021. So there was an Israeli action in Gaza. And suddenly here, you had Jewish people being attacked in broad daylight in response to that. So I'm not talking about somebody vandalizing a synagogue in the middle of the night, although that's also reprehensible. I'm not talking about breaking the window of a kosher restaurant, again, it's reprehensible, but like right up the road from where we are in Times Square, a Jewish man was savagely beaten in broad daylight, in public. The only thing he was doing was walking. And so that got our attention. It seemed like something had changed. Now, to be clear, like, war is bad. You've covered it. You know it better than I do. All war is bad. But it triggered something here, a kind of open season on Jews that we hadn't seen before.
What do you think the reason for that was?
So I think, number one, polarization and sort of cynicism create an environment where scapegoating happens. And Jews play this perennial role as the scapegoat. It's lasted throughout the ages. I think, secondly, Lulu, extremists feel emboldened. Extremists have increasingly feel emboldened, like they can move into the culture and they don't get called out. And we see it particularly on the right, where we've seen people with extreme right-wing views, literally in positions of authority. We've seen it on the left, where people with radical left-wing views are sort of moving into, again, the sort of commentariat as well. And I think it's very problematic. And I think
what radical left-wing views are you talking about that's going to be anti-Semitic? You said that it's a person, like a Jewish person got attacked because they're a Jewish person in response to Gaza. So I guess you would say the firebombing that took place in, I believe it was like Colorado or was, I think it was Denver, and the Israeli embassy attacking. Like once again, that's not really a left or right issue. That, like, we've established that conservatives also despise the genocide or they don't despise the genocide that's going on, but they do despise the amount of weight that Israel holds in the minds of our politicians. Like, I know I'm being pedantic here, but I think it's important when he's saying radical left-wing views can cause anti-Semitism. What specifically are we talking about here?
Social media has sort of whipped all of this up into a frenzy. So those things together created very combustible conditions, and I think that continues to create a very fragile, dangerous environment today.
I mean, what you're describing, of course, only got more intense after the events of October 7th, the atrocities committed in Israel, Israel's response in Gaza, what we've seen there. It's turbocharged the debate, both about what anti-Semitism is and has turbocharged anti-Semitism itself. When that happened on October 7th, understanding all this lead up that you had seen and been a part of,
hate this game.
did you think at that point that what the ADL was going to be called on to do would be different or change in some way?
Well, let me explain. I'll tell you what happened. October the 7th, of course, was a Saturday, and they're 6-7 hours ahead in the Middle East. So it's the middle of the night, and my phone rings, very unusual, and I answer the phone, and it's the woman who heads up my office in Jerusalem. And she says, Jonathan, I'm in our bomb shelter in Modin. There's thousands of missiles being fired at the country. So there are missiles, and we put on CNN, and it wasn't even being reported on CNN yet. So we were confused, what's really going on? But it became very clear, because my phone was then buzzing and buzzing and buzzing, that something really big was going on. So I ended up going into the office, we all did, and we were fairly sort of overwhelmed and stunned. I mean, it was terrifying. But then what happened, Lulu, is then in the afternoon, we started getting different kind of reports. I remember getting a call or a text, it was somewhere here in the city by NYU, of like a rally, like a pro-Hamas rally that was taking place, where people were cheering what had happened. And then we started getting reports of similar things. And then we started seeing all the tweets, all the posts, the hang glider emojis, the people celebrating. And this was really astonishing, meaning what I had not seen up until that time was this like public outpouring of hate. I think a lot of us in the Jewish community ask like, what's going on? You know, what's the mood? I think people are still reeling from that today. I know I am.
Did you feel like because of the severity of the reaction that you had to focus more on Israel, and did it change your perception of how you had to sort of...
Like, once again, man, his examples of anti-Semitism are, and specifically left-wing anti-Semitism, are people celebrating October 7th from happening. That belays a fundamental misunderstanding of the dynamics of Israel and Palestine. Israel is a colonial state oppressing Gaza, and if people resist that oppression, which happened on October 7th, and there were war crimes done on October 7th, that's not, October 7th was not an anti-Semitic attack on Israel. That was an anti-colonialist attack on Israel. I'm gonna need some more examples here. It seems pretty similar to the Muslims cheering after 9/11 bit. And so then if you criticize America for their actions after 9/11, maybe you're a Muslim terrorist.
Look at what was happening here in America.
I wouldn't say that, no. So I wouldn't say that because what was happening there meant we had to change our approach here. No.
Holy shit.
But we did have to start to think about, we hadn't seen things before, like people graffitiing, synagogues with Free Gaza. We hadn't seen things before, like people painting red triangles.
I mean, I also need to say that Jewish communities and institutions in America enforce the idea and enforce support to Israel. There's a big story happening right now where, or not right now, but there was a big story happening where Zohran Mamdani was accused of wanting to defund synagogues there was a big story where Zohran Mamdani is targeting Jewish nonprofits from raising money. He's anti-Semitic because he's targeting synagogues and other Jewish groups He sponsored a bill that would force any New York synagogue or Jewish corporation that gives money to Zaka, United Hatzalah, or the One Israel Fund to pay a fine of at least $1 million or to risk a lawsuit. The bill, Not on Our Dime, Ending New York Funding of Israeli Settler Violence Act, was introduced in the New York State Assembly by Mamdani in May of 2023, with the aim of prohibiting New York not-for-profit corporations from engaging in unauthorized support for Israeli settlement activity. The group behind the bill then began the process of expanding it in May 2024. What is occupied territory? Occupied territory is considered to be any territory within the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. If the bill were to pass, nonprofit corporations such as synagogues would be prohibited from raising money for any organization or individual within the occupied territory. Contravention of this bill would lead to a fine of no less than $1 million or civil action. So, according to the group, the Long Island-based One Israel Fund raised over $2 million, what they typically raise in a year, in just the last few months of 2023, for thermal drones and surveillance cameras for settlers. One of the individuals who appeared in a video thanking the One Israel Fund for a drone is named by President Biden's Sanction of Violent Settlers. You have synagogues in America doing funding to support terrorists in Israel. Like, we can't pretend that saying free Gaza on a synagogue is a purely anti-Semitic thing when there are synagogues that are being used as institutions to support terrorism. Like, what are we really talking about here? Hey, Fwesa, happy to have you here. Aside from aiming to dissolve nonprofits that fund settler activity, the group said it wishes to explicitly empower Palestinians who've been harmed by the violence funded by these New York-based charities to file a lawsuit against them. I mean, it's just undeniable. Like, look, we can talk about there's just countless articles where anti-Zionist Jews are getting ostracized by their synagogues. Here, what do we have here? So let's listen to this. I haven't even looked this up.
Last year and a half has forced a lot of uncomfortable and fraught conversations about Israel within American Jewish communities. But this kind of conversation isn't new to one congregation in Chicago. It decided 3 years ago to call itself anti-Zionist, meaning it rejects the concept.
Let's just read this right here, and they'll probably say it, but most American Jewish congregations say a prayer for the state of Israel every Shabbat. Some proudly display the Israeli flag in their sanctuaries. They raise money to support Israel, more than $850 million since the October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas, according to the Jewish Federation of North America. To these congregations, support for Israel is almost a religious tenet of American Judaism. Those who reject that tenet risk being cast out. Zedek Chicago's members talked about relatives who will no longer speak to them, of being fired or having to quit under pressure from previous jobs at Jewish organizations. Rosen himself was kicked off of the Chicago Board of Rabbis. Like, literally kicked off of the Board of Rabbis for being an anti-Zionist. Not just like being against Israel, but saying that Palestinians and Israelis should have equal rights. You get kicked off of the Board of Rabbis. And this is true for Christians too. This is true for Christian Americans as well. It's not just that synagogues support this, but it's religious fundamentalists that believe that Jews need to go to Israel so that like the world can end are also in support of this. You have Christian organizations for Israel. Christians for Israel. What? It's not CARE, is it? No, that's like Christians for Israel International, Christians United for Israel. Is this Kufi? Christians United for Israel, Kufi. How much does Kufi send? Kufi charity. Christians United for Israel. How much have they raised? Maybe we can take a look at this. Oh, become a member. 10 million members. 10 million members for this fucking shit. Where, if you're outspoken against Israel, you can get kicked out of this organization and ostracized from your community. Are we going to have this? Defend, pray, donate? Okay, let's click donate. What do we have here? Ooh, one time monthly of $5,000. Nah. Okay, so we're not actually Look at this. You donate to Kufi, and it's your tax-deductible gift makes Israel stronger and the Jewish people safer. Can't be further from the truth. Let's take a look at the Wikipedia article and see if we can see how much money they've raised. 10 million members. It's the largest Zionist organization in the United States. Once again, when we say that we're anti-Zionist, that's not anti-Semitic. The vast majority of Zionists in America are not Jewish people. Kufi, which is a Christian group, exclusively not Jewish, is the largest Zionist organization in the entire country. And it's not Jewish people. Like, I can't make this more clear. It's not that you're discriminating against Israel and it just so happens that like 90% of Jews are in Israel. No, if you're an anti-Zionist, you're at odds. The majority of the people that disagree with you are going to be non-Jews. How much have we gotten here? Oh, John Hagee, he's the chairman of it. He's like an anti-Semitic Zionist. That's what John Hagee is. What do we have here? Night to honor Israel's Daughters for Zion. Position. How much money have they raised? Kufi, money raised. Policy accomplishments. What the fuck? What is this shit? Kufi helped advance the 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act, which provided $14.3 billion in emergency aid for Israel. This legislation also included the Stop Harboring Iranian Petroleum Act, as well as the Masa Amini Human Rights and Security Accountability Act. So we have in 2020, when was this? When the fuck was this passed? I don't know. Probably like post-COVID. Oh wait, hold on. What is this?
American graduate student and
Holy shit, this guy looks creepy. This guy looks like he's AI generated.
U.S. military veteran Taylor Force.
Taylor Force was a West Point graduate who served in Afghanistan and Iraq.
He was a first-year MBA student at Vanderbilt University.
Stabbed to death by a Palestinian terrorist outside Tel Aviv.
Taylor Force was attacked during the terror spree that engulfed the ancient Mediterranean port city of Jaffa.
U.S. taxpayer money, say critics, handed over to Palestine.
Good to see that anti-Muslim fear-mongering is still alive and well in today's America. Never went away.
U.S. taxpayer money, say critics, handed over to Palestinian terrorists and rewarding their relatives.
It's called the Taylor Force Act.
Called the Taylor Force Act would cut off U.S. aid to the Palestinian Authority if it does not stop the payments. The U.S. gives the Palestinian Authority more than $300 million a year, and the PA reportedly shells out that much to the families, about 7% of its total budget.
The U.S. House of Representatives has just passed.
What was this? Oh, your email?
The U.S. House
His email is just German. That's what his email
of Representatives has just passed the Taylor Force Act.
Congress passed the Taylor Force Act, named for the U.S. Army vet murdered by a Palestinian terrorist in Jaffa.
Today is to thank...
Okay, if you're an Army veteran and your last name is Force, that's actually pretty sick. Okay, so anyway, you have a American soldier or an American military cadet getting killed by someone who is a member of a open air prison, and that's going to drive people to, oh, let's stop saving the lives of people that are in this open air prison. Anyway, so this was 14.3 billion, and we can see here that the synagogues raised more than $850 million since October 2023. Yeah, I think the Christian Zionists did a little bit more than the Jewish Zionists did. Just saying. So I think it is being purposefully ignorant if you're saying that Free Palestine getting scrawled on the side of synagogues is a completely unrelated act. There is no relation to synagogues and support for Israel whatsoever. Like, that's just totally anti-Semitic. Like, Give me a fucking break.
On people's homes for the audience. The red triangle is a symbol that Hamas uses to target their victims. We hadn't seen that before. So to answer your question, it wasn't
It's also a symbol of the Palestinian flag.
like, oh, there's a war over there, therefore we must change. But what it was something is now happening over here. And we've got to be paying attention to this and trying to understand, how did we get to the place where college students think it's normal to surround someone who is wearing a kippah and call them a baby killer? Like someone who is simply identifiably Jewish, suddenly being targeted and victimized by people claiming you're committing genocide. I mean, obviously holding Jewish people or any group of people collectively responsible is anti-Semitic or, again, racist or xenophobic. The prevalence with which that is happening here totally astonished me. I wouldn't have guessed it.
I mean, we've seen indisputable acts of anti-Semitic violence. I mean, we have the fatal shooting of 2 Israeli embassy employees in D.C., the firebombing in Colorado in June against peaceful protesters calling for the release of the hostages, arson at Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home. So there have been many high-profile cases
at Josh Shapiro's home.
Violence against Jews in this country, and that is terrible. There is a debate that I want to understand a little bit more, your perspective on, about what constitutes anti-Semitism in this country.
Yeah. I mean,
because we have pro-Palestinian speech, we have criticism of the Israeli government, we have anti-Zionism, and we have anti-Semitism. So how do you distinguish between those?
Look, criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic. If you're looking for an organization which criticizes the Israeli government, Israeli politicians, Israeli policies.
Fuck. I want to make a point, but I'm going to die here to this stupid ass bird. So look, this is the ADL's position on this, and this is the liberal Zionist position on anti-Semitism versus anti-Zionism. Notice how he's not saying anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitic. He's saying criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic, which I agree with. But what does he constitute as criticism of Israel? Well, it's criticism of the government. If you disagree with their policies, you can protest those policies. If you disagree with like a certain politician there, it's not anti-Semitic to criticize that politician. If you disagree with a law that gets passed, you can protest against the law. Obviously you can fucking do that, and that's not going to be discriminatory against a group of people. Like, that's insane. But what is off limits when we're talking about criticism of Israel? The ethnostate, that's off limits. And so if you say that, I just saw your comment, the Dark Souls bird is Hamas. No, if we're talking about the fundamental premise of Israel as a Jewish ethnostate, and you criticize that, that's anti-Zionist, and that's going to be anti-Semitic in the mind of Jonathan Greenblatt. So wait for it. Let's rewind it a bit.
We have criticism of the Israeli government. We have anti-Zionism, and we have anti-Semitism. So how do you distinguish between those?
Look, criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic. If you're looking for an organization which criticizes the Israeli government, Israeli politicians, Israeli policies, I point you to ADL.org, because we do it. There is a robust debate in the Jewish community, and I think you see heated criticism in the Jewish community of policies of the Israeli government. When it crosses a line, is when it's not.
One of the birds just killed the other bird with his bomb. Fuck, I'm gonna die. Oh, shit. Okay, damn it. I wanted to hear him, but that's cool.
And I think you see heated criticism in the Jewish community of policies of the Israeli government. When it crosses a line is when it's not a criticism of Israeli policy per se, but we see things like, for example, number one, the demonization of all Israeli people. So demonizing an entire group of people for a policy of government you don't like, I would say that's anti-Semitism. Say secondly.
Dude, no, it's not. If anything, it's bigoted against Israelis. But just because it's an ethno-state that's doing shitty stuff doesn't mean that criticizing it and generalizing the population, which, okay, like, I'll bring that up later. But if you're criticizing the general population, that's not against the ethnicity of that population. You're just like, it's against the nation itself. And then we can talk about the actual polls and the opinions of the people there, right? Are you really going to die on the hill that the genocide of Palestinians is not popular among the general Israeli population? Like, Give me a fucking break. Sure, I love the idea that there are protests in Israel. There are Israelis protesting against that, but that doesn't change the fact that the majority of Israelis are in favor of the genocide that's going on.
Delegitimizing the state itself, its right to exist.
Yup, yeah, this is what I said, right? Oh, you say that Israel shouldn't exist as an ethnostate. That's anti-Semitic. Hit me with it, Jonathan. Hit me with it.
The demonization of all Israeli people. So demonizing an entire group of people for a policy of government you don't like.
Bro, this is so fucking stupid. You know what's anti-Semitic? Demonizing Jews. That's anti-Semitic. Demonizing Israelis, not anti-Semitic.
Like, I would say that's anti-Semitism. Say secondly, delegitimizing the state itself, its right to exist. And then number three, double standards. When you use double standards when you talk about Israel versus other countries. So when I see demonization, or
if you focus on Israel too much, that's anti-Semitic. Yeah, you just played all the greatest hits. Love to see it. Love to see that the greatest hits still work and the old timers can bring them out at their most current concert.
Delegitimization or double standards, that's where I think about, is this really criticism of Israel or is this something else? Now, let's talk about anti-Zionism. And by the way, to talk about anti-Zionism, we talk about Zionism.
Please define it.
We'll talk about it. So Zionism is, simply put, the right of the Jewish people to self-determination in their ancient homeland. That's what it is. Zionism is essential to the Jewish tradition. The idea of Jews returning to Israel, we've been talking about it since Moses.
No, it's not essential to the Jew. Why would you lie? Like, the earliest anti-Zionists were Jewish. Because it was, I don't know, like, even if you go by the book of, like, by the religious law, going, like, there's still a strong group of Orthodox Jewish people that think it's an affront to God to try to force this prophecy to come to fruition. Like, everything this guy's saying right now is stupid. Like, yeah, I'm all with you when we're talking about the rise of anti-Semitism and how Israel doing a genocide can cause an increase in anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic behavior and in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. But when you start talking about defending the idea of Zionism and criticizing Israel's right to exist, that's anti-Semitic? You lose me completely. Because at this point, you're just not defending Jews anymore. You're defending your ethnostate project. That's what you're defending. Yeah, the right to exist, the right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland. Complete bullshit. You can move to Palestine. You have that right. You can buy land in Palestine. You can rent in Palestine. You can get a house. You can get a job. You shouldn't be discriminated against if you go to Palestine. What you don't have the right to do is ethnically cleanse the population of its native inhabitants and then oppress them in ghettos. That's what you don't have the right to do. And if you're going to cry and say that you're being bigoted against me, if you get criticized for that, then you can go fuck yourself. You have no right to exist in that land if you took it over through force and bloodshed and through war crimes.
Literally. Political Zionism is newer, 125 years, but that notion of self-determination in the homeland doesn't exclude Palestinians, doesn't exclude any other group. It's saying Jews have the right.
Why did you push them out?
This sort of
Why
liberation movement to go back to where they're from. Anti-Zionism is the belief that Jews do not have that right. It is an ideology which is committed to saying we will do what we can to prevent Jewish self-determination in their homeland. Anti-Zionism is an ideology.
No, it's not. He's just lying. Anti-Zionism is saying that Jews and Palestinians should have equal rights and no one should be able to subjugate another group of people. That's what anti-Zionism is. It's basically the most leftist, most humanist position that you can arrive at.
Ideology of nihilism, Lulu, which would literally seek to not just delegitimize, but eliminate the Jewish state. And that's very problematic.
So you have equated anti-Zionism with...
Eliminating the Jewish state is problematic. The president of the ADL supporting an ethnostate. I mean, what the fuck are we doing here? You, in the ADL, you say that you want equality for all, and now you're supporting an ethnostate. What the actual fuck is your problem? Like, you're just monster. Why would you do this? Didn't they play what the ADL's mission is? Did they not play? I thought they like threw up what its mission was. We fight anti-Semitism and we stand for equality for everyone. And then 5 minutes later, defending an ethnostate. If you say I can't have my ethnostate, that's anti-Semitic of you. Just can't make this shit up.
When I see demonization or delegitimization of double standards, that's where I think about, is this really criticism of Israel or is this something else? Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about anti-Zionism. And by the way, to talk about anti-Zionism, we talk about Zionism.
Please define it.
We'll talk about it. So Zionism is, simply put, the right of the Jewish people to self-determination in their ancient homeland.
Oh, fuck.
That's what it is. Zionism is essential to the Jewish tradition. The idea of Jews returning to Israel, we've been talking about it since Moses, literally. Political Zionism is newer, 125 years, but that notion of self-determination in the homeland doesn't exclude Palestinians, doesn't exclude any other group. It's saying Jews have the right, this sort of liberation movement to go back to where they're from. Anti-Zionism is the belief that Jews do not have that right. It is an ideology which is committed to saying we will do what we can to prevent Jewish self-determination in their homeland. Anti-Zionism is an ideology of nihilism, Lulu, which would literally seek to not just delegitimize, but eliminate the Jewish state. And that's very problematic.
So you have equated anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism.
It is.
And I will say that in preparation for this conversation,
it is. Okay, then what the fuck? Like, dude, you've lost all credibility to call out real anti-Semitism. What the fuck are you doing? It's ridiculous. You're a clown. You're a clown. If you're saying a group of people can't have an ethnostate is bigoted against that group of people, then you have no right to talk about any other form of bigotry because you've lost the plot. You are operating in some kind of fantasy land. There's just no connection between this. There's absolutely no connection between saying you can't have an ethnostate and then advocating against Nazis. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Nazis want an ethnostate. You should be on their side. Why are you criticizing them? He's just a loser. Just a fucking racist piece of shit loser. That's all that this man is. Hey, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Appreciate it.
I talked to a lot of different people. And one of the things I heard is that anti-Zionism for them is a desire to have the rights of Palestinians be equal to the rights of Jews in Israel and the Palestinian territories. The idea of sort of, I guess, the one-state solution, if you will. Is that definition of anti-Zionism to you anti-Semitic?
Well, look, if you believe that only Jewish people don't have the right to self-determination, that's anti-Semitic.
Bro, I can't play this game and listen to this fool at the same time. Oh my god, they're all following me. Quick, run in the tower. Run in the... Oh! I'm still alive. Oh! Shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, she said like, oh, do you think that saying equal rights, do you think that saying equal rights is actually discriminatory against Jewish people? Because that's what it comes down to, right? Saying Palestinians have equal rights as Jews is discriminatory against Jewish people. Do you think that's discriminatory against Jewish people to say equal rights? And the guy's like, look, if you specifically say that Jews can't have more rights than Palestinians, that is anti-Semitic because you're choosing to focus on Jewish people.
Because it's holding out
to you anti-Semitic. That anti-Zionism for them is a desire to have the rights of Palestinians be equal to the rights of Jews in Israel and the Palestinian territories. The idea of sort of, I guess, the one-state solution, if you will. Is that definition of anti-Zionism to you anti-Semitic?
Well, look, if you believe that only Jewish people don't have the right to self-determination, that's anti-Semitic because it's holding out Jews to a double standard you don't accord to other people. So if you believe my definition of Zionism, which is really not my definition, it's widely accepted, it's peculiar to me how anti-Zionism isn't the opposite of that, how people choose to interpret it.
Bro, what the fuck are these birds? Oh my god, birds are going to kill me. Oh my god, I'm actually just blind right now, dying. They shouldn't be allowed to go into towers. Oh my god, there's still one in here. Oh fuck. You little fucking... Oh shit. Oh yes. Alright, I'm alive. Okay. If you say Jews can't have Bro, she literally asked him the question. No shade to this interviewer. I don't think she realized she was just interviewing a racist. She asked him the question. If Palestinians have the same rights as Jews, is that an issue? And he said, if you only apply the idea that Jews can't have self-determination, that's anti-Semitic. But she said Jews have the same rights as Palestinians in Israel. And he's like, yeah, but having the same rights is actually discriminating against Jewish... Like, he's just defined... Like, this man, just... What we saw this man do is he just defined Jewish people having the right to self-determination as genociding Palestinians. He just said that in order to have self-determination, Jews in Israel must genocide, which is a position that I cannot accept. I refuse to believe that Jewish people can't have any self-determination without genociding. That's an insane, bloodthirsty, racist position to hold. But you have the president of the ADL, which, what's the ADL's mission again? What the fuck is the ADL's mission? ADL mission. Sorry, let me go full screen here for all y'all. ADL mission, our mission in history. It's to stop the defamation of the Jewish people. And to keep... Okay, so first of all, you're not doing a good job of stopping the defamation of the Jewish people when your president says Jewish people can't have self-determination without genocide. That is literally defaming Jewish people. You are saying they are a bloodthirsty, genocidal group of people. Absolutely disgusting. And the second part of their mission is to secure justice and fair treatment to all. You can't have fair treatment because apparently that discriminates against Jews. Insane position to have. Like, this guy is so racist. He's such a genociding freak that he's like, we can't actually have fair treatment because we need to genocide you in order to have fair treatment. But if we had fair treatment, we wouldn't be able to do the genocide, so it's not fair. Like, all roads point to, oh, we must genocide people as Jews. Just discussing, like, this man is responsible for anti-Semitism. He needs to be reported to the ADL for defaming Jewish people as being pro-genocide. Like, let's run this back one more time.
When I see demonization or delegitimization of double standards, that's where I think about, is this really criticism of Israel or is this something else? Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about anti-Zionism. And by the way, to talk about anti-Zionism, we talk about Zionism.
Please define it.
We'll talk about it. So Zionism is, simply put, the right of the Jewish people to self-determination in their ancient homeland. That's what it is. Zionism is essential to the Jewish tradition. The idea of Jews returning to Israel, we've been talking about it since Moses, literally. Political Zionism is newer, 125 years, but that notion of self-determination in the homeland doesn't exclude Palestinians, doesn't exclude any other group. It's saying Jews have the right, this sort of liberation movement, to go back to where they're from. Anti-Zionism is the belief that Jews do not have that right. It is an ideology which is committed to saying we will do what we can to prevent Jewish self-determination in their homeland. Anti-Zionism is an ideology of nihilism, Lulu, which would literally seek to not just delegitimize, but eliminate the Jewish state. And that's very problematic.
Yeah.
So you have equated anti-Zionism with...
Like, what about my white state? Oh, you can't campaign against my white state because that would delegitimize it. You can't campaign against Nazi Germany. You can criticize Hitler, but you can't criticize the idea of a pure German state because that would delegitimize the right for white people, the right for Aryans to self-determine. I mean, you can't take away their self-determination to an ethnostate. What are we talking about? How is this allowed on the internet? How is this person taken seriously by anyone with these racist, genocidal views? I can't believe this is the world we live in.
anti-Semitism.
It is.
And I will say that in preparation for this conversation, I talked to a lot of different people. And one of the things I heard is that anti-Zionism for them is a desire to have the rights of Palestinians be equal to the rights of Jews in Israel and the Palestinian territories. The idea of sort of, I guess, the one-state solution, if you will. Is that definition of anti-Zionism to you anti-Semitic?
Well, look, if you believe that only Jewish people don't have the right to self-determination, that's anti-Semitic because it's holding out Jews to a double standard you don't accord to other people. So if you believe my definition of Zionism, which is really not my definition, it's widely accepted, it's peculiar to me how anti-Zionism isn't the opposite of that. How people choose to interpret it, to embellish it, to sort of dress it up as something other than what it is. But the reality is, if you believe how I laid out Zionism, then anti-Zionism is pretty simple.
I think the challenge is if someone defines their view of anti-Zionism in a way that allows for Jews to exist in a state of Israel, but that grants Palestinians rights, but you're seeing that as anti-Semitic, people don't feel like they have the space to have a different view without being tagged with something that, as we have already established, is really pretty serious.
Well, let's look. In fairness, I can appreciate that for some people, this idea is an abstraction.
What the fuck?
Right? Oh, anti-Zionism. It means such and such to me. I get that. But let me tell you what anti-Zionism doesn't mean to me, but what it results in. It's a lunatic trying to burn down the governor's mansion with his family sleeping in it because of his, quote, position on Palestine. It is, again, firebombing elderly people because you want to, quote, end all Zionists.
In talking to people who are self-described anti-Zionists,
I suck at this game.
Starting with the idea that that is the way that they feel that everyone should have rights in Israel and Palestine and Palestinian territories, to then extrapolate that they are somehow connected to murder, arson.
I am not connecting those people, Lulu.
No, but
that's kind of a sleight of hand and not
no,
fair.
but I'm really not trying to do a sleight of hand. I'm just trying to understand. You say that anti-Zionism leads to, that is the inevitable sort of end to this kind of belief. And so I think what people would say who might hold those beliefs is that is a sort of exaggeration and sleight of hand because they don't want the annihilation of Jews.
They might not want that. They might not understand what it means. They might not be steeped in the context. They might not be familiar with all of the history. But all I know is what I see every day. All I know is the thousands and thousands of people who contact us because they have been, as I've described already, targeted and victimized. Not because of what they believe, but because of who they are. And again, when you normalize language like, from the river to the sea, when you normalize language like globalize the Intifada, when you normalize language like, again, Israel is a Nazi state, this creates the conditions in which people feel not just compelled, but almost obligated, Lulu, to do horrible things. So I think ideas have consequences, and it starts with words. And what I'm saying to you is, again,
dude, you're literally justifying an ethnostate. What do you mean ideas have consequences and it starts with words? Take a look in the mirror. Israel is not at risk of getting eliminated. If you are talking about anti-Zionists, you don't need to cry because you think all of the Jews in Israel are going to get forcibly put into concentration camps and then ethnically cleansed from the region. That's not in danger of happening. You know what is happening right now? Israel is ethnically cleansing the region of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. They're ethnically cleansing both of those areas. So why don't you spare me the tears of the potential downsides of advocating against the ethnostate of Israel and join the protesters that even though you might think they're a little too zealous in their advocacy against Israel, their heart's in the right place because they're trying to stop ethnic cleansing. If words have power, then join their fucking side, dude. Oh my God. Once again, I thought your position was you stand for the equality of everyone. You're the president of the fucking ADL, and you've been defaming Jews this entire interview, saying that they're genocidal and they must need to genocide Palestinians in order to have a state where they feel like they can live contently in.
Zionism is one thing. The opposite of that is not look, let's have an ideal one state where everyone is. I'm not talking about that. I'm focused here in America on the felt experience of Jewish people.
I'm sure you saw
Dude, you're the head of the ADL. You should be in favor of supporting everyone's rights. No, you're in favor of the feelings of American Jews while there's a genocide going on. What? Like, this is like a fucking comedic sketch. The guy is like, I'm in favor of no discrimination against everyone, but when there's a genocide going on, because they claim that they're doing it on the behalf of the Jewish people, I'm actually going to also defend that genocide. What a disgusting monster. I actually, like, I know this guy's a rabid Zionist, and he hates people that speak out against Palestinians, but he can't even hold it in this extremely easy interview. He can't even hold it in.
My colleague Ezra Klein's recent piece on divisions within the Jewish community, because this is not just an active debate outside of the Jewish community. These definitions and how they're interpreted are also very vigorously debated within the Jewish community. Absolutely. And in that piece, he argues that the war in Gaza and Israel's actions over the past year there have broken the consensus around the central place Israel has for American Jews. And there was this one line in the piece that really struck me about how we think about the idea of self-determination. And he writes, and I'm quoting here, "The question is not whether Israel has the right to exist, it is whether Israel has the right to dominate." Israel does exist, right? But the question is, does Israel have the right to dominate, which is what has caused so much consternation about how Israel exercises its right to exist.
So it's just important that I come back to my focus really every single day is the lived experience of Jewish people here. So I am not someone who's opining on the politics and the geostrategic issues. That's important. Ezra has the luxury of doing that. As a columnist, I don't.
The reason I delve into this is because you brought it up when we are discussing words like anti-Zionism. At the crux of that debate, of course, is this idea that you believe anti-Zionism means the destruction of the Jewish state, and other people interpret it as the current incarnation of how Israel expresses its right to exist over the domination of the Palestinians.
Like, again, I just disagree with this.
What a fucking cop-out, man. You know, like, he takes a position, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. That's a position he takes. But then whenever he's asked about Israel's current actions in Gaza and the reason why some people might be protesting against it, he says, I don't concern myself with that. I just concern myself with the feelings of Jews in America. Really? Even though you claim that your organization works for equality for everyone, you're just concerned about the feelings of Jews in America. And yet you still find it within yourself. You still have the ability to criticize anti-Zionists. But I thought you couldn't care about what Israel's doing. Give me a fucking break, dude. Just say you're a propaganda machine for Israel. All roads lead to that. All indicators point to you just being a propaganda machine for Israel and that supports the ethnostate of Israel.
I disagree with characterizing something with this phenomenon as something that it isn't.
Okay.
So again, I come back to that. And I won't concede that point because I don't think it's correct. And then secondly, as it relates to Israel, look, the reality is the country inside the state of Israel has equal rights for its Arab citizens,
No, it doesn't.
whether they are
It's a lie.
of the Druze faith.
He's just lying. This is just a lie.
Or the Christian faith or the Muslim faith, whether they self-identify as Palestinians or Bedouins or Arab Israelis. You've spent a lot of time there. You've probably been
and I would say, at a minimum, you know, there are many examples of treatment that is not equitable. And I think that's what's so hard for many people about the clear distinction that you're sort of making.
Israel's it's a democracy, unlike all the other countries in the region. It's imperfect, like all democracies on the planet, including the one we're living in today. And we hold it to a very high standard because it's a democracy. We may object to certain things, practices that state is doing. And yet somehow people use that to rationalize and justify actions against American Jews here.
I don't know that any rational person is supporting Jews being treated badly in America. What I'm trying to understand is this definition here, right? About what are these different buckets? How are they defined? And then how does that actually play out in real life in the United States? So, for example, I want to talk a little bit about the situation on U.S. college campuses.
Sure.
Because shortly after October 7th, the ADL and the Brandeis Center wrote a letter to nearly 200 universities. You said that the group Students for Justice in Palestine, which is a group that the ADL has focused on, should be investigated for materially supporting a foreign terrorist organization, which can carry a penalty of up to 20 years in prison. So critics of that letter and that position have said that the ADL is trying to suppress pro-Palestinian speech because the definition of material support for terrorism is actually vague in the statutes.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah,
First
can you
of all,
explain why that letter and
let's
and
talk
what
about
that
the
means?
letter. And so just to sort of set the stage, I believe in a two-state solution. I believe that Israelis will never truly have safety and security unless Palestinians also have a degree of dignity and equality in a state of their own. Let's just establish that. Let's make sure that's clear. But let's talk about it.
A two-state solution is an argument for genocide. Saying you believe in a two-state solution while Israel's actually just ethnically cleansing Gaza is sticking your head in the sand. Like, that's insane to say. There is no state of Palestine. It's been absolutely turned into rubble. They're ethnically cleansing Palestinians out of both the West Bank and Gaza. And you're still pretending like there's a two-state solution possibility? No, dude. These Palestinians have been forcibly removed from their homes if they're still alive. And there's no form of governance. There's no infrastructure there anymore. The only way these people are going to have any semblance of a normal life after this is if Israel and the United States somehow stop being racist, genocidal freaks and rebuild people's housing and rebuild their infrastructure, and then also offer the fucking Israeli infrastructure and Israeli education system and their transportation and all of their economic opportunities. They need to give them equal rights. That's the first fucking step in atoning for this genocide that's happening. Like, the first step of many. I mean, it needs to be more than equal rights at this point. There needs to be severe reparations done to these people.
SJP. So as I mentioned earlier, October the 7th was this extraordinary moment. We all went to the office and we were there on the 8th and all the days since. And on the 8th, the person who runs our Center on Extremism, the group at ADL, which monitors and disrupts extremist threats, he reached out to me and said, you need to see this. And one of our people was in an SJP national chat on October the 8th. And in the chat, they released or published for people to use who are in the SJP chat an organizing toolkit, discussion guides in plural, and talking points about what had happened on the 7th. Now, mind you, we were literally still trying to figure out what was going on the 8th. I'm sure you remember, you were covering the story. There was still fighting going on. We didn't know exactly what had happened, who had perpetrated it. And yet SJP on the 8th already had their narrative very well developed. One of the things that caught our attention on the 8th is Lulu. They went from referring to the state of Israel as Israel in their materials to only referring to it as the Zionist entity. Mm-hmm. Now, you know this for your audience.
What is this? What is he talking about? I don't even. He's talking about a university protesting?
Zionist entity is how the Islamic Republic of Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah refer to Israel. On the 8th, they talked about they used terms like genocide to describe what was happening in Gaza. And they also talked about, they were sort of praising what had happened on the 7th. It was really still happening, the kind of direct conflict with the Zionist entity. So when we saw this definitely got our attention. This is not what you see from other groups on campus. There was a level of language here that seemed wholesale adopted, again, from Hamas. And then what we proceeded to see was SJP continue to amplify and spread narratives through their social media, through their on-the-ground protests, and use tactics that were way beyond anything we'd ever seen before from groups criticizing Israel on college campuses.
Well, let me ask you this, because the Supreme Court held in 2010 that law that you asked them to be looked into over only applies to actions, quote, performed in coordination with, and I'm quoting here, at the direction of a terrorist organization, and not to independent advocacy. So are you saying that you believe those materials came from Hamas?
Well, I can tell you that.
Directly?
I don't know where it was coming from. We felt like this was a group with a pattern of behavior that already had our attention, that was clearly expressing a desire to escalate right here, and we thought it merited attention. I absolutely stand by that. Does that mean that they're in direct connection with that? I don't know. What it meant was we identified, again,
the 200 schools, students being looked into for material support for terrorism. I mean, that is a very...
He's literally saying they said words we don't like, and so we're going to smear them as anti-Semitic. Once again, man, I mean, fucking hell. If Ethan Klein and this fucking guy and everyone else that cries about anti-Semitism from a liberal perspective wants to accuse someone of being anti-Semitic, show me the anti-Semitism. Not that they called your favorite ethnostate by a name that you didn't appreciate. Not that they used advanced, cohesive protest tactics where they didn't talk to the media. Show me the anti-Semitism, you dumb, bald motherfucker. Don't just say, they were really scary, so they're anti-Semitic. Are you fucking serious right now? You're the president of the ADL and you're smearing students as being anti-Semitic because they called Israel the Zionist entity? Go cry me a fucking river.
Very serious allegation that the Supreme Court already looked at and said, basically, you have to be in direct coordination with a terrorist entity. I mean, again, I'm just wondering, did you believe that that's what was happening?
The language they were using, the tactics they were expressing support for, were in direct alignment with a terrorist organization.
That is a different thing, though, than actually being directed by and in communication with a terrorist organization.
You know, we track extremists and we've been doing it for decades and decades and decades. This gives us the ability to a degree of pattern recognition, and we clearly saw
literally just the same as cops. Oh, why'd you stop them? Well, I mean, you know, they're black, and other criminals are black too, so I had to do it. Fucking hell. Fuck. Run. Okay. Alright, let me just try to kill this wolf thing. Nay. Oh, man. The issue is I start swinging and then I can't stop. Oh my god. You like to swing that sword, don't you? Oh, take your juice, take your juice. Now run, run, run. Okay. Yeah, I'm good. I'm not that good, but I'm fine. Hit him. Oh my god, I'm so bad at this game.
Extraordinarily concerning behavior that led us to think this needs to be looked at. Guess what? All of our concerns have borne out to be correct about what was going to happen on those campuses.
Oh, what happened then? Dude, if you have real evidence of them being anti-Semitic, why would you say that they used words that scared you? Like, give us them being anti-Semitic. If they actually were anti-Semitic, tell us how they were anti-Semitic.
Since those days, Jewish students have been targeted, victimized, and vilified, in large part by campaigns organized and executed by SJP. Like, that's literally happened on our campuses. And I can go line by line and tell you the stories of all the individuals who've experienced this.
I don't want to belabor the point. I just think it's slightly different what you're talking about, what actually happened on campuses, and the accusation of material support for terrorism. Those are slightly two different things.
So look, on March 5th, at the takeover of the Barnard Library right here in New York City, Quad, which is the SJP, they banned the SJP chapter at Columbia for its behavior, and the students immediately reconstituted it as Quad, that's what they call it. And those students literally handed out Hamas literature. How do I know that? Because I went to the campus the following morning, and the students who were there in the library as it was taken over by the Quad students said, here, Jonathan, look at what they were handing out. Pamphlets that said Hamas Media Office on it. I'll bring one to the next time we meet so you can see it for yourself.
Then why were you saying?
Look, did Hamas send that to them? Did they download it? I don't really know.
Bro, why were you talking about the language they used if they had a pamphlet they were handing out with the letter heading being Hamas Media Outlet? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Alright, let me try to parry him. Oh, fuck, no. Oh, this parrying did not work. That was a bad idea. Oh my god, I'm like at 1 HP. Oh. Drink the juice. Oh my god, bro. Chill out. Whoa. Whoa. Alright, no, this is not happening. Oh, fuck. Come on. I can actually just stagger him by hitting him. Why aren't I just cheesing him? Oh, because I died. So, let me get this straight. This guy's like, the first thing that he brought up that was bad that they did was they said, they didn't even say the word Israel, they said the Zionist entity. Isn't that scary? That's the same language I've heard Iran use about Israel. Then he's like, they were handing out pamphlets that had Hamas head of publications on it. It was from the letterhead of those publications. I need to look this up, but what were these pamphlets?
As was taken over by the Quad students, said, here, Jonathan, look at what they were handing out. Pamphlets that said Hamas Media Office on it.
Come on. We need to look this up. This sounds amazing. Hamas Media Office pamphlets. That's not how you spell pamphlets. Barnard protesters shared Hamas Media Office flyers. Do we have something that's not insane? Times of Israel. Completely not insane. Anti-Israel protesters, an affiliate of Colombia, distribute Hamas pamphlets during an invasion of a campus library. Footage shared by protesters shows masked activists waving Palestinian flags, chanting and waving an effigy of the university president. Shut it down. Jewish students at the scene shared photos showing the protesters distributing pamphlets by the Hamas Media Office. Photos of the late Hezbollah terror chief Hasan Nasrallah and writing "Death to America." They're handing out pamphlets written by the Hamas Media Office justifying October 7th. Our narrative. Why? First operation. Where does it... Okay. Do we have more pictures of that? Hamas Media Office. Is this it? The Our narrative? Oh, right here? Okay. This is terrorist support and it's rawest and most... I mean, once again, when we're talking about terrorist support, you actually have to give material support to the terrorists. And also, like... Seriously? Like, I once again, it's fucking college students in a university library. Okay, so that's funny. So he's like... Yeah, they call it the Zionist entity, and then they're also giving out Hamas Media Office.
Or the Barnard Library right here in New York City. Quad, which is the SJP, they banned the SJP chapter at Columbia for its behavior.
Oh, sorry, guys, I forgot. I should have expanded the window.
And the students immediately reconstituted it as Quad, that's what they call it. And those students literally handed out Hamas literature. How do I know that? Because I went to the campus the following morning, and the students who were there in the library, as it was taken over by the Quad students, said, here, Jonathan, look at what they were handing out. Pamphlets that said Hamas Media Office on it. I'll bring one to the next time we meet so you can see it for yourself. So look, did Hamas send that to them? Did they download it? I don't really know what the process was of coordinating, but you can't hand out ISIS literature, in front of Low Library at Columbia. I guess you could, and you may be detained for doing that. Is that speech or is that conduct?
In the same vein, I'd like to sort of understand your position on Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University graduate who was initially detained under a different law that says his actions were a foreign policy threat and that he can be deported because of that. He is, of course, married to an American. He has a green card. The ADL supported his arrest when it happened, posting on X, "We appreciate the Trump administration's broad, bold set of efforts to counter campus anti-Semitism." Again, I'm quoting, "And this action further illustrates that resolve by holding alleged perpetrators responsible for their actions." Are you comfortable with the way this administration has been using the threat of deportation against protesters?
Okay, so a few things. First of all, we deeply, profoundly believe as an organization that, again, we've been doing civil rights for over 100 years, in freedom of speech.
Dude, you don't do civil rights. You do Israeli propaganda. That's what you do.
Freedom of expression, the ability to protest without fear of sort of political or reprisal. This is fundamental to our belief system. And so for me, it's not about speech, it's about conduct. There's lots of ways you can protest the actions of what's happening, of the Israeli government, things in the Middle East. without using violent rhetoric or justifying violence.
Rhetoric.
Again, there's lots of groups who do this, Lulu, who don't use this kind of language or these tactics.
I mean, I will say on CNN, Khalil said publicly, anti-Semitism and any form of racism has no place on campus and in this movement. I guess
when asked, he wouldn't condemn Hamas at the same time in that same interview.
I would ask you, though.
Yeah.
Not condemning Hamas is now violent rhetoric? What do you call yourself then? A mass murderer when you do defense for Israel? What the fuck are we talking about? No, like, he just shifts a goalpost so fluidly, right? Oh, violent rhetoric has no place in protesting Israel. And then when she's like, well, he didn't use violent rhetoric, and in fact, he was an advocate against violence, then he says, okay, but he didn't condemn Hamas. How is that violent rhetoric? Condemn Israel
about,
right now.
Again, the legal repercussions for some of...
Like, once again, this guy said, if you condemn Israel, you're anti-Semitic.
These issues over speech. Well, that's I guess, what I'm asking.
If you read the full sort of post, what I said when Mr. Khalil was detained was that he needed due process. And I continue to believe he and every other person who is detained or arrested or all of that, like, due process is also fundamental to our legal system. Fundamental.
But when someone gets detained for political speech, that the first thing that comes to someone's mind isn't they need to get due process. The first thing should be, this is ridiculous that they got detained for political speech. Hey, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you so much. The whimsical, I can't even see your username. Whimsical Wanderer.
That law, though, had been very rarely used at that point. I mean, and this is where language becomes so important, because at the trial, which is about his deportations and others, a senior State Department official testified. Student visa holders are having their social media screened for criticism of Israel, including the current war in Gaza. And the State Department official said that is the practice at the moment. And in his testimony, this official said, and I'm quoting, "In my understanding, anti-Semites will sometimes try to hide their views and say that they're not against Jews. They're just against Israel, which is a farcical argument." He added, "It's just a dodge." And so I'm just wondering how you think this is all being implemented. I mean, should students not get visas if they've criticized Israel?
Look, of course, that's absurd. So what I'm focused on is not what people think, but what they do. This is why these...
It's absurd. Then why didn't you say it was absurd when Mahmoud Khalil got arrested, and instead you said he needs due process? If it's absurd, then you should have said it's absurd, instead of tacitly endorsing and normalizing the idea that you can get arrested because of your speech against Israel.
Conversations about anti-Zionism as if we're some abstraction are kind of problematic for me, because I deal in the reality, again, the lived experience of Jewish students.
Sure.
But I'm saying...
But this is a reality of how this is now being implemented by policy in this government.
I got to be frank. I don't know who that State Department official was, but I don't agree that you can keep people out of the United States because they are anti-Semitic or racist or sexist or express any other prejudices. I don't believe in this concept of thought police. That's not what we do at ADL, and I certainly wouldn't want to see that codified, into the criminal code.
I mean, one concern that I've heard is that, and again, referring to what the State Department official said and the actions of this administration, is that this government might be using anti-Semitism selectively to screen people with whom it might be ideologically opposed.
Well, obviously that would be a problem. Like, I don't think anti-Semitism should be used as a political football by elected officials from either side. And so to the extent that the Trump administration or any administration would use it as a pretext to go after people who they don't like or with whom they don't agree on a broader set of issues, clearly I wouldn't agree with that.
All right, we're going to leave it here because we're actually at time, although I have lots. I know.
This went fast.
This went fast. We've been in it.
What, they're at time? Who do they interview next? All right, well, we'll keep watching a little bit.
But we're going to talk again, and there's plenty more to talk about.
Super good.
I really appreciate your time.
Look, I appreciate your questions.
I talked to Greenblatt again, and we get into criticisms that the ADL has gotten too close to the Trump administration.
The ADL's gotten too close.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Since we last spoke, as you know, a lot has happened in the war in Gaza. And, there is mounting outrage in Israel over terrible images of one of the hostages having to dig his own grave, looking incredibly gaunt. And we...
Starved, I think is the word.
I think starved is the word. And we've seen a mounting international outcry that has also been voiced in Israel over the mass starvation in Gaza. The beloved and prominent Israeli author David Grossman has now called what's happening to Gaza a genocide. And he said that with immense pain and a broken heart, that the occupation has corrupted us. That's a quote from him. And I did wonder what you feel about that characterization coming from someone who's often seen as a moral compass in Israel.
Well, look, I think David is an extraordinary author and in many ways one of the muses of the Jewish state who sacrificed so much. I don't begrudge him at all of his heartfelt opinions. Look, the situation in Gaza is a tragedy of immense proportions. The suffering, the starvation.
Oh my God.
It is heart-wrenching. And like, it pains me every day. I would never purport to be a moral compass like David Grossman, but I do feel that my job requires me to have a kind of moral clarity.
And on the use of words.
On the use of words.
This is what we've been discussing in different ways. And so I guess having heard that the word genocide is viewed when used against the Israeli state as basically an attack on Israel's existence itself, I just wonder if you view it that way or if you don't.
Well, again, like, I don't begrudge David. I do think what's happening in Gaza is a terrible, catastrophic situation. I don't think it's a genocide because that's a legal definition, which means an intentional effort. And I don't have.
Who were you just watching that said this exact same thing? We were just watching it like last week. Oh yeah, it was the guy that Mehdi Hasan was debating. Oh, it's so bad, but it's not a genocide because, you know, that's a special term for Jews. Basically what they're saying. It made me and my sister feel bad for it to be called a genocide. Bro, this horses thing is
the dictionary in front
I have
of me.
it here.
But
it says
intentional. Okay, what does it say?
I mean, it's a UN, right? We should say it's a legal definition. And it says any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group.
I love how they're like, there's a legal definition for genocide, and I don't think we've reached that yet. Then they're like, okay, well, I have the legal definition right here. I can read it out to you, and it seems like it's applicable. And he's like, okay, but like, I don't feel that it's really screaming genocide. That's not really speaking to me personally.
Well, so in fairness, I don't have that definition in front of me, right? And I haven't read it like you have before this. But what I'll simply say is that...
What? Didn't this man just say that he cares so much about the genocide that he's thinking about it constantly? And then she's like, oh, well, I have the definition of genocide. And he's like, well, I haven't read that definition. Well, maybe, hear me out, if you were the president of the ADL, the organization that stands for social justice for everyone, you should know the definition of genocide when there's one taking place. When there's a conversation about Israel potentially doing a genocide, maybe you should look up the definition of genocide so that you can know what it is. You dumb motherfucker. Well, I really care about Palestinians and it's horrible what's happening, but I mean, I haven't looked up genocide, so I haven't read that definition. So I'm just gonna like do an argument from ignorance and say that it's not genocide. No, you're just dumb. You're just doing propaganda for Israel. That's what you're doing.
Is a terrible, catastrophic situation.
In different ways and so I guess having heard that the word genocide is viewed when used against the Israeli state as basically an attack on Israel's existence itself, I just wonder if you view it that way or if you don't.
Well, again, like, I don't begrudge David. I do think what's happening in Gaza is a terrible, catastrophic situation. I don't think it's a genocide because that's a legal definition, which means an intentional effort. And I don't have the dictionary in front of me.
I have it here. It says
intentional. Okay, what does it say?
I mean, it's a UN, right? We should say it's a legal definition. And it says any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group.
Well, so in fairness, I don't have that definition in front of me, right? And I haven't read it like you have before this. But what I'll simply say is that I don't believe the Israeli government is committing genocide. I don't think they're intentionally...
Literally just sticking his head in the fucking ground and being like, no, well, I mean, that is extremely applicable to what Israel's doing, but I just don't believe it. You're a loser. You're just a loser. Just say you enjoy what Israel's doing. Like, you fucking idiot. Yeah. Like, you're a shill. Why would anyone take what you have to say seriously anymore? Oh my god, this thing just came out of nowhere and fucked me up.
Trying to destroy or annihilate a group of people. I do think this is a war that was started by Hamas. I do think Hamas has made the decision to black market and hoard the aid that comes in. The Hamas government has chosen to build tunnels below, not to create protective structures above. So we could ask ourselves questions about who is really bringing the catastrophe to the Gazan people. But look, at the end of the day, for me, it's not about how we define these things.
What the fuck? What the fuck is this man talking about? Oh my god. I didn't think it could get worse. And then he blamed Hamas for the Palestinians dying. Holy shit. Dude, I mean, this tree sentinel just killed me. But is it really the tree sentinel's fault? Because I was riding a horse and that died. The horse didn't do a good job of setting me up for success. The place that I spawned in was right by the horse, and I should know better than provoking it, right? So at the end of the day, is it the horse's fault? Is it my fault? That's irrelevant. All that matters is that it's not a genocide. Dude, actually, it's crazy. What? I did not think it could get worse than him saying that Jews are a naturally genocidal people and they need to be able to genocide people in order to have a happy life. Like, the insane shit this man is spouting is shocking to me. It's actually shocking to me.
Again, we talked about this last time. Anti-Zionism is an interpretation. It's a fact.
Its physical destruction in whole or part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group.
Well, so in fairness, I don't have that definition in front of me, right? And I haven't read it like you have before this. But what I'll simply say is that I don't believe the Israeli government is committing genocide. I don't think they're intentionally trying to destroy or annihilate a group.
Not even an attempt to engage in good faith in what the interviewer brought up. Like, this guy's a worm. Not even an attempt to engage in good faith. Just blatant, I don't care what you just said. I don't think it's a genocide. What's the difference between him and a right-winger?
Group of people. I do think this is a war that was started by Hamas. I do think Hamas has made the decision to black market and hoard the aid that comes in. The Hamas government has chosen to build tunnels below, not to create protective structures above. So we could ask ourselves questions about who is really bringing the catastrophe.
Dude, tunnels below are a protective structure. What the fuck are you talking about? Why do you think Hamas uses tunnels? He does realize that bomb shelters are underground, right?
Catastrophe to the Gazan people. But look, at the end of the day, for me, it's not about how we define these things. Again, we talked about this last time. Anti-Zionism is an interpretation. It's a fact. And the pain and hunger and tragedy in Gaza is a fact. And the deaths of civilians are a fact. And the status of the hostages is a fact. So the facts compel me to say, without any hesitation, this war needs to end. The hostages need to come home. The aid needs to flow in. And we need people on both sides to be able to live in some degree, some modicum of peace. That's what I want.
The reason I bring up the use of the word genocide, and we should also say that, Ehud Olmert, the former prime minister of Israel, is now calling Israel's actions war crimes, right? So again, use of these words is that these questions on the words that one uses are at the heart of what I hear many people asking about this war, including Jews, which is, how can they support Zionism if this is the current manifestation of Zionism?
Well, look, it's like, how can you support Islam if Ayatollah Khomeini is the progenitor of it? How can you support Christianity if the Crusades happened? How can you support America if you disagree with President Trump's policies, or even in the face of larger scale disasters like slavery? So Again, Zionism is the right of a people to self-determination. You can be upset with the policies of a government. But again, if you didn't say in the wake of enslavement of Africans, America should be destroyed, if you didn't say in the wake of the...
Bro, if America was defining itself as a slave-owning country, then people did say America should be destroyed. They literally did destroy America to get rid of slavery. What the absolute hell are you talking about? That's not a good example because it goes in the face of what you're advocating for. People did destroy America to get rid of slavery. As should Israel get destroyed to get rid of its absolute oppression of the Palestinians.
Crusades, Christianity has no legitimacy. If you don't say in the wake of the oppression of women for centuries, Islam has no right, then why would you feel differently about this? Again,
I'm only trying to I'm trying to characterize, I think, what people have been
I appreciate that you are
struggling
and I'm
with,
just trying to clarify for you why I find the presentation so problematic.
Yeah, I mean, what people are...
Is this or is this not a genocide? That's an anti-Semitic question. That's a very problematic framing that you're bringing to me right now. Because did you know that other groups of people did bad things too? And those groups of people, like, that did historical crimes are not being ostracized right now? Well, the Catholics aren't currently crusading. America, even though it's doing a genocide right now, did break itself up over slavery. Islam is criticized rightfully for, religious fundamentalist Islamists are criticized rightfully for subjugating women, as is every other religious fundamentalist group. They all subjugate women. It seems to be a weird coincidence that all religions are in favor of subjugating women. Kind of weird, right? And Zionism defines itself as doing genocide against Palestinians. So yeah, maybe that should be a fucking criticism to Zionism. If you get rid of the genocide of Palestinians for Zionism, then I'm not going to be as big of a protester against Zionism. But you gotta change your definition, my boy.
Trying to understand is how far that right to self-determination extends. If self-determination means having a nation that is majority Jewish, does the right to self-determination permit Israel to deny others their civil and human rights to maintain it?
Well, look, I think that's fair. It's a reasonable question to ask. And the reality is that people inside the state of Israel have civil and human rights. At the end of the day, if you're looking for a country...
Israel treats Palestinians as livestock. Within Israel and in the occupied regions of Israel, which is Gaza and the West Bank, they treat Palestinians as livestock. Saying that they treat them with human rights is just a laughably evil thing to do. Kind of crazy that he's saying that. But yeah, he's just doing propaganda for Israel.
Anywhere in the world that treats everyone perfectly, I don't think you'll find one. If you're looking for a country in the Middle East, a democracy with corrective capacity, that's the state of Israel. And the rights that are enjoyed by minorities there, if you just compare it to other countries in the region, Muslims and Druze and religious minorities.
The right to get carpet bombed, such great rights that the groups being oppressed by Israel enjoy.
And ethnic minorities have more rights in Israel than in any other country in the region, Lulu.
I do want to bring the conversation back to the U.S. and the work that the ADL is doing. You know, the ADL just came out with a report rating states on how they're doing on combating anti-Semitism. Can you talk me through briefly why you wanted to look at states? What was the sort of purpose of breaking it down in that way? Because I think it's the first time you've done it, right?
First time we've done it. So we call it the Jewish Policy Index. And indeed, it takes a state-by-state view about policies and practices to evaluate how they are doing in the work of fighting anti-Semitism and hate. It's data-driven. It's grounded in evidence. You can see that we basically tiered the states into 3 different categories. Let's say okay, better, and best. And we lay out why we think they are doing as such. Again, what are their laws? What are their practices? What are their policies? So that a state that is okay can see the path forward to do better. And it's a work in progress. My hope would be is that over the next year and the ensuing years, we'll work with all of...
I mean, dude, you say here that if you say Israel's doing a genocide, that's anti-Semitic. What do you want people to... Why would anyone take you seriously after that?
the states, again, Republicans or Democrats, whoever might be in office, to try to demonstrate how they can pursue a path forward that will again keep their Jewish citizens as safe and secure as possible and allow them to enjoy the same rights, the same privileges as do all other people in that state.
You know, on this idea of working with both
right
parties,
to genocide people.
The Forward, which is a progressive Jewish outlet, reported a few months ago that in a speech to Republican attorneys general this summer, you know, you said that student activists were frothing at the mouth, looking like they just came out of Mosul. You said that there is a convergence of what I call the radical left and Islamist groups here in the U.S. And you praised the Trump administration's punishing of universities like Harvard and others, saying, God bless Secretary McMahon, referring to the Secretary of Education. I know you made those comments in what you consider to be a closed-door meeting where there were Republican attorneys general. But is there anything you'd like to clarify about that?
Absolutely. So number one, I certainly was talking about activists, but only those who are completely masked, who don't show their identity, who are dressed like other people we've seen, unfortunately. On
masked activists he has an issue with when the Trump administration is literally deporting people for protesting Israel. He has an issue with people being masked. Okay.
The field of battle,
must hate
and those student activists who are screaming and harassing and threatening other students. So that's number one. So when I say frothing at the mouth, I was referring to that very small percentage of these activists. Number two, I also talked about, as you said, the administration's approach to dealing with the anti-Semitism at campuses, and I praised Secretary McMahon. And I should say right here up front, I worked with the prior education secretary, and I've worked with this education secretary. And I credit the Biden administration for their national strategy to counter anti-Semitism, a really important document. No one had done what the Biden administration had done before in elevating anti-Semitism to a federal priority. And ADL, in full disclosure, worked with them on that. And they get a lot of credit for adopting the plan.
Thank you for
and
the
then I give
gifted
credit to the
subs.
Trump administration for actually implementing aspects of the plan and taking a strong view, again, in the face of real, not imagined, real acts of hate, real acts of discrimination.
I'm going to try this one more
Now, that
time.
being said, I praised Secretary McMahon in that meeting. Maybe I went a little overboard saying, God bless. And at the same time, when I met with Secretary McMahon, I met with her in her office and told her, yes, I appreciate what you're doing on these universities leaning in. And I'm worried about overreach because going too far could not only, harm the universities, it harms our whole country. And the fact of the matter is pulling back funding for research.
Once again, you're saying that the examples of anti-Semitism or the issues you have with the protesting is them wearing masks and them being loud. Those are the issues you have. Give me some real shit, dude.
Can have lots of deleterious impacts. So I said to her and to the Anti-Semitism Task Force, yes, lean in, but don't go too far.
What would be a sign that this administration has overcorrected in your view?
That's a good question. Well, I think to the extent that research stopped happening, PhDs stopped being granted, breakthrough innovation was halted, those would be things that would be evidence to me of it going too far. On the other hand, we've just saw the settlement with Colombia, there was another recent settlement. Those are encouraging because it shows me that schools demonstrate they're going to take this seriously, and the administration shows that they're going to work with them and reinstate the funding. That's a good outcome for everybody, I think.
I've heard the concern and the criticism that the ADL is sort of increasingly aligning itself with the administration, with Israel, with the right, and it's sacrificing its longstanding commitment to broader civil rights. I mean, in between our two conversations, there was a New York Magazine article that came out sort of reflecting some of those criticisms, which you have roundly rejected, we should say. But I'm wondering, do you see how the intensity of the language you used in that meeting could lead someone to that conclusion?
I mean, first of all, the piece that you're referring to relied almost entirely on vague, anonymous sources. I'm surprised that you're even asking me about it, to be honest. That being said,
well, did you say it or
again,
not?
we helped to write the national strategy to counter anti-Semitism, released by the Biden administration. We were deeply involved in that. We are working as well with the Trump administration. This is what we do. I just don't even agree with the premise that we are somehow aligning with the right or aligning with the administration. We are an institution at ADL, and one of the features about being an institution is you work with the other institutions. So I get and I take the feedback and I hear the criticism, and I simply would say, again, we've worked with presidential administrations over generations, right and left. We don't agree with them on everything, but where we can find common ground, we try. And where we have a point of disagreement, we make that known.
Last few questions.
I want to keep going. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate you engaging with what are thorny and challenging questions that are part of our national debate. And I know you've looked at a lot of the polling, as I have, that Israel's lost a lot of support, even among Jews, especially among young Jews. Do you ever worry that you might have positioned the ADL in such a way that the younger generation of Jews won't see you as defending them and the things that they believe in?
Fucking hell,
What's interesting,
dude.
90% of Jews in the polling that I've seen, or the surveys that I've seen, believe in the right of the state of Israel to exist, i.e. they are Zionist. And so to young...
Thanks for participating in chat. If you guys have not been gifted a sub yet and you want your name to be in pretty green, it is only 99 cents a month. Basically, this money is just going to my editor so I can just chill, do these fun streams, and pay them to do all of the work. So I appreciate all of the gifted subs, but yeah, no pressure if you don't want to get a membership or anything, but it is only 99 cents.
Jewish people, the vast majority of them identify with and feel positively about their Jewish identity and have a strong association with the state of Israel. All the data shows this. And so I think the majority of them, from whom I've heard, appreciate the work that ADL does for them in their communities. So I don't really think about this question, how have you positioned ADL? ADL has had a core position.
So you think young Jews who might self-describe as anti-Zionist or have problems with the state of Israel at the moment, you think that they should...
come on.
No, but...
Well, come on.
But is it... No, but
he won't even let her ask a freaking question that could indicate that there's a difference between being Jewish and being a supporter of Israel.
Like, I have problems with policies of the state of Israel. But when you talk about the young Jews who are defined as anti-Zionist, Lulu, like, there are young Hispanic people who support President Trump's policies at the border, okay? There are young Hispanic people who voted for President Trump. But the vast majority...
Yeah, but in this case, being a supporter or being a Jewish anti-Zionist would be equivalent to being a Hispanic person that voted for Kamala Harris. Like, it's in their best interest to be an anti-Zionist, as is everyone's best interest.
And the mainstream organizations fighting for the...
I do love how he compared anti-Zionist Jews to Hispanic people that voted for Trump. Love that comparison there.
The rights of immigrants don't agree with that, but there are some who do. There are some who do. Look, there's Blacks for Trump, and there's a whole movement among a portion of African Americans who deeply believe in the president. But like, would you say to the NAACP CEO, why don't you represent them?
No,
like,
it's less than why don't you represent them. It's more a question of, as an organization that helps define anti-Semitism and has defined it as anti-Zionism, at a moment when these things are being debated. I mean, I hate to come back to this, but we've seen expressed that a lot of, and I've heard it from them, a lot of younger Jews, and I've heard it from the members of the Jewish community, that
what polls are you seeing? Like, I understand anecdotally you may have heard it from some people. I believe there may be a bit of a selection bias there. Like, let me ask, have you gone to any of the mainstream synagogues?
Bro, he's actually so triggered. Holy fuck, that's hilarious. I can't believe this, like, sweet lady triggered this man so much. As I'm getting trampled into the dirt by this damn tree boy.
Like in New York City? Like the ones with the largest membership, and ask them? I would encourage you, go to 92Y, go to the West Side JCC, go to Central, Park Avenue, Rodef Sholem, go to KJ, like go to all these large Jewish synagogues and ask where their young people are. Like, again, you can go to Brooklyn and find 3 synagogues, or by the way.
And I appreciate you answering the question. I am simply, from the things that I've seen.
But you're giving the audience a very narrow bias view, as if that's where all Jewish young people
I'm asking a question, and you're responding and saying that's not where you think it is, and you're not worried about it.
I'm responding to the question and saying, I don't think on a day-to-day basis how my...
Bro, he got so mad. She's literally just like, okay, but what do you say to, like, young anti-Zionist Jews? Do you think that you're isolating them at all? And he's like, are you insane? Would you talk to the head of the NAACP and say that you're isolating Black Trump supporters? Which people literally do say that to Black people in politics. How do you reach Black Trump supporters? People literally do say that to Hispanic people and like Hispanic orgs in politics and say, how do you reach Hispanic voters that voted for Trump? But this guy can't even handle the notion that the slightest notion that there could be anti-Zionist Jewish people without throwing a fucking temper tantrum.
Positioning ADL,
damn,
I'm focused on defending the Jewish
thank
people.
You for the
and those who want to pontificate, like it must be nice. This is not you. This is not you. But it must be nice for those people in the commentariat to like have these views. And so, yeah, I do think it is fair to say many Jewish people are upset about the war, aspects of its prosecution, the human toll, etc. That doesn't mean they think we should eliminate the Jewish state. And I think that's sort of the logic behind.
But there are a lot of people that do want to eliminate the Jewish state, and that's not anti-Semitic.
Your question, that's why I don't agree with the logic, Lulu. There's so much you get right, and I think on this, you're just wrong.
She asked the question.
You know, we started this conversation talking about how this is a terrible time for American Jews, no matter how they feel about the war. And, you know, you've spent the last 10 years of your life focused on protecting Jews in this country. What do you want your audience to understand about how they can help fight anti-Semitism?
Like to the ordinary person?
Yeah, to the ordinary person.
Why would you take his opinion? He said
That's a good
Jews
question.
are bloodthirsty.
I deal with so many people who are dealing with pain, but usually it's ADL coming in to try to help them, you know. But on a person-to-person, human level?
Every time I've seen the ADL, it's been attacking pro-Palestinian advocates. Like, how does the ADL help people? That's what I want to know. Other than giving the Trump administration targets for students to deport or arrest or detain for protesting against Israel because they wore masks and so that scared him, or because they said the Zionist entity instead of saying Israel, or because they screamed and so he describes them as frothing at the mouth. How do you help people exactly? You get students arrested. You get fucking hell, the Tree Sentinel. You get anti-Zionist students smeared as anti-Semitic. That's how you help people. You help them get blacklisted so they're never going to get hired by anyone. Yeah, that's even closely related to the Trump administration or any other Zionist organization or any other Zionist organizations.
Look, I really believe in this idea of sort of radical empathy and being there for others, not because it's a quid pro quo, but because it's the right thing to do and opening your heart.
Bro, what a sentence to unpause with. I really agree. I really believe in the idea of radical empathy. What a fucking sentence. That's so funny.
Usually it's ADL coming in to try to help them, you know. But on a person-to-person, human level, look, I really believe in this idea of sort of radical empathy and being there for others, not because it's a quid pro quo, but because it's the right thing to do and opening your heart. So I guess what I would say to the non-Jewish person at the individual level is to, number one, when you see something, say something, like speak up, and try to have that radical empathy for your Jewish peer or colleague or friend or family member.
Bro, I have radical empathy for Jewish people, and that's why I don't think they need to genocide a population in order to live a happy life. Unlike you, where you're claiming that Jewish people need to be bloodthirsty and genocidal.
And go to them and try to, when something happens, like say something. Number two, I think we can all educate ourselves and get the facts. And I think for me, in an environment where, again, young people aren't getting their news from the Times.
Dude, you don't even know what the fucking definition of genocide is. And then when you read the definition, you're like, I don't think that Israel's doing a genocide. And now you're saying you need to be educated and know the facts. Seems like your job relies on you not being educated and not knowing the facts.
But from TikTok. I think it behooves all of us to try to be, if you will, digitally literate, right? And so to take information from a variety of sources we better understand.
This is a joke. This man is joking. He has to be joking, right? When he literally just said, well, I feel like Israel's not doing a genocide. I don't care what the definition of genocide is. At the end of the day, it's irrelevant to me. And now he's on this heartfelt rant about how people need to be more educated, look at good sources, and not just get their info from TikTok. You just said you don't care about the definition of genocide because you feel like Israel's not doing it.
The issues, rather than taking one source and thinking, oh, now I know it all. And then I think number three, I think showing up matters, you know. One of the most powerful things that I did in my job was when Reverend Al-Sharif and I went down to Florida for a memorial service after a young black woman was shot and killed in an act of senseless violence. And being there in that black church kind of environment I hadn't been in before. And just being present, just showing up really mattered. And I got lots of positive feedback from the parishioners who probably did expect to see the head of the ADL, like sitting in the pews for the service. Showing up. And so we can all show up in lots of ways, but showing up for another community maybe in a way that's unexpected, can be a small gesture can be incredibly meaningful. So I guess those are the things I would say. Speak up, like learn the issues, and show up when you can.
Gaza has frayed a lot of relationships. I've seen it, you've seen it, institutions, governments. And I'm wondering how you look at that.
It's like this bitch talking about Gaza again. He's so pissed off right now. He just wants to talk about how he showed up to like a fucking church and then that made everything better. Like, dude, that's how you help people? You show up at a church? Are you fucking serious? Your example of helping people is like, I sat in a pew for 20 minutes and people were like, oh my God, it's the president of the ADL. And they started like screaming and like chanting like you're some kind of pop star. Like, he's my favorite liberal Zionist. I have his trading card in my collection. He's awesome. I have him as his rookie card when he still had hair and only had 3 moles on his face. Right.
At the ADL, because you have been in the crux of many of these debates, and they are controversial and they are difficult, as we have seen. So how do you think an organization like yours comes out the other side of it?
Oh, so let me break this into different parts. So number one, we deal with anti-Semitism, and I'm afraid that the anti-Semitism we've seen to rise to such high levels, I hope and believe it will come down. I don't know if it's going to get back to the levels we were at, say, in 2015, 2014, 2013.
Isn't that
I
your
worry
job?
that increased anti-Jewish hate is now part of the norm. I worry about that. I just do. And so we're going to have to cope with that reality, like it or not. I worry about communal ties that have been frayed between the Jewish and Muslim communities, for sure, in particular. I mean, so many Muslim people, like Jewish people, are outraged by what's happened in the war, like they were outraged
in the war,
by what happened on October the 7th, and how they come together and forge bonds, I think, is really important. Yeah, and I just worry on a day-to-day basis, again, about these Jewish people having a sense of insecurity.
All right, I'm going to
I was just talking with a family, their Jewish child is at summer camp. They had security drills at the summer camp. Like, that's crazy. At a Jewish summer camp, having security.
Oh my God. In America, someone having a security drill. That's crazy. Really? Do you not have your kids in school? Maybe he doesn't have kids. Have you been away from the news for the past 20 years? You are not aware that America has the highest gun violence in the world and you need to have security because of like the radicals, mostly right-wing radicals, shooting people up? It's crazy that they had a security drill. Oh yeah, I don't care about the Palestinians. I just care that the feelings of Jewish people in America. Oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, I know Palestinians are dying. I'm not comfortable calling it a genocide. I'm really focused on the fact that my friends, their kids had to do security drills at camp. Yeah, that's rough. That's rough.
Security drills, but they have a whole new, what would you call it, like protocol, because of the fear, very real fear of threats. And I worry that that's the new norm, Lulu, that's not going to recede, that will become institutionalized.
Dude, that's already been institutional. We have shooting drills for the past 10, 15 years. We have shooting drills. It's normalized. It's normal.
So I do think on the other side, not just of the war, but of this last decade, when we've seen such a rise of hate, when we've seen hate from podcasters on the right and on the left, when we've seen explicit acts of
Where are the leftist broadcasters? Oh, Hasan said that that Israelis, that Zionists aren't fit to be dog catchers. That's the hate that Hasan has. Hasan has hate for Nazis. Oh no. So much anti-Semitism coming from the left. We know this guy personally called out Hasan and said that Hasan's like a piece of shit terrorist.
Violence, from Pittsburgh to Boulder, coming from all sides. I worry that American Jews are now living with a kind of anxiety that's well-founded. And the work to turn that around, the work to get back to a mean where Jewish people, like all people, can feel safe in the places where they worship, in the places where they work and live. That's what I want to see us get back to. And that's going to be really hard. And I think it's going to take a long time.
Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you very much for your time.
thank you. I appreciate you. And look, I know sometimes this, again, the conversation can be hard and get heated, but I don't take any of this personally. I hope you don't. I think it's all professional.
Of course.
And I have nothing but gratitude, honestly, nothing but gratitude for giving me the opportunity to talk with you and to share my point of view. So thank you for that, Lulu. Really, really
Thank you for coming on. I deeply appreciate it. That's Jonathan Greenblatt.
Right. That's Jonathan Greenblatt, the interview. I'm going to try to kill this guy. Is that really loud? Why can't I? That was such a bad mistake.
We reached out to national...
That's enough Elden Ring for today. I'm going to get fucking triggered. Alright, that's enough for today. Okay, guys. I think I'm going to call it. Holy shit, though. Goddamn, 6 years ago, Anti-Zionism is Anti-Semitism by Mehdi Hasan. Let's just go through these tabs. So there is this one. I did want to watch this, but maybe later. Interview. I mean, it's just like so entitled, so self-absorbed, so frankly just like casually genocidal to say that Israel needs to have an ethnostate. If you're against the ethnostate, you're actually anti-Semitic. Saying that criticism of Israel's just like criticism of Israel's has nothing to do with the Zionist entity. You're actually anti-Semitic if you're against the ethnostate just because of their actions today, because we're not against America because they had slavery. Yeah, it's just really fucked up. So anyway, guys, maybe we're gonna have to watch this tomorrow. But Whimsical Wanderer, thank you so much for all of the gifted subs. Guys, just once again, if you want your name to be in green and you are not lucky enough to get a gifted sub, please consider joining the channel. It's only 99 cents a month. Everyone, have a good rest of your day. Let's see. I think I need to get my outro music. It's Highway. Let me play this outro music. Alright, guys. Enjoy this outro.